podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Ed, we're recording this a week and a half before the World Cup. Have you got World Cup fever yet?
I think I do, actually, yeah. It's that time of year when I watch a ridiculous amount of football, or that time of the epoch that we're in. So once every other year, there's a tournament on, and you're allowed to watch like 3 games a day. Funnily enough, I'm not far off that anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you say the time of the year that you watch a lot of football, do you mean like Sunday?
Yeah. Mind you, actually, a Sunday you can watch Australian football first thing in the morning and Brazilian or American football last thing at night.
Have you ever done that?
Yes, I have. Yeah. It is worrying that I know the schedule like that, but yeah. There you go. Anyway, so yeah, the World Cup. And the good thing about this is there's that clash of styles, teams you don't really know much about normally, a lot of players you don't always see, although, of course, the game is so globalised these days that many of the best players in Europe. But the thing about the World Cup is there are those squads that have lots and lots of players that are not playing in Europe, and that's what makes it exciting sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And even those that are playing in Europe, I mean, you watch an awful lot of football, as we've just discussed, but those of us who maybe are a bit more parochial and tend to just watch a lot of United, there's a lot of players that I'm not super familiar with. And also there's players playing all around Europe. Even you probably don't actually watch Russian football, except when it's the Champions League. And,
Nope.
and a lot of players playing in Russia, players playing all over the world. And lots of players playing in the South American and Central American leagues that we don't know much about. Even many of the Central American teams have players playing in the MLS as well. So
Very true, yeah. So now we've got our Alan Shearer moment out the way and say, we don't know anything, ho, ho, ho. Which, what's your book on that? When's the first time that Alan Shearer admits that he knows nothing about football?
I mean, pretty early doors, I reckon. The opening game is between Brazil and Croatia. We're going to be, to be honest, he's going to have to do a job to claim not to know anything about Brazil or Croatia, because there's a lot of players that he'll know in that.
Yes, Mexico and Cameroon the day after. Yeah, he might struggle with a little bit. So anyway, look, we've made an effort to do some research for this show, in depth, I have to say, and hopefully we do know something about the world of football. There are many players we know better than others, but our attempt today is to preview the tournament and talk through some of our thoughts about each of the groups. We have some expertise in-house, and we'll do some predictions, will we, by the end of the show?
Yeah.
Who's going to win, top goal scorer, best player, dark horse, that kind of thing, and take some of your Twitter questions. There's quite a few this week, as always, and I think it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. And the thing is, since no football has happened, there's nothing for us to moan about. Nothing at all.
I know, I was kind of annoyed about what David Moyes said. No, stop right there. Emergency brakes on. I'm not talking about David Moyes ever again. So, yeah, it's all set up to be a pretty interesting World Cup. There are lots and lots of different styles of teams in this World Cup. I think, we saw in South Africa 2010 that the real emergence of the 4-2-3-1, right, that became the dominant theme in world football at that time. And the fact that Spain have won 3 international tournaments in a row might have led to tiki-taka sweeping forth and conquering all. But there's probably only a small handful of sides at the World Cup that you would say actually play that style. So I think we're in for a bit of a treat in terms of the way it all gets mixed up.
Yeah, well, really only Spain, I think. I mean, of the teams that do play high possession football, Holland will be one under Van Gaal, who's very much of that philosophy, or in fact instigated it. Many would say the father of it. And Brazil to some extent, although of course they use width considerably. Brazil, even this Brazil team, and we'll get onto them in a bit. And I suppose Chile have a possession-based game, and there's a few others, but I think Spain will still stand out, and that's interesting given how much they've dominated, that the world hasn't followed them. In fact, I think it's fair to argue that there's been more of a reaction against tiki-taka and a way to beat it than there has been a kind of following of it.
Yeah, because I think it really... I mean, that Spain style did not happen by accident, did it? You say Louis van Gaal was in many ways the father of that style, and you know, that's a style that's born out of La Masia, isn't it? That the Spain side that has swept all before it is one that has grown very organically, learning to play that style from a very young age. So actually, if that was going to have an effect, you'd expect it to take a generation in a lot of ways to kick in. A little word on the angle of our coverage. So if you listen to the podcast regularly, you'll know that normally what we do is talk about Manchester United exclusively. We're going to have a little Manchester United angle where there is one. We'll definitely be covering the United players in slightly more detail, but there should be something in this for you if you're not a Manchester United fan, because we're not going to be myopic about this. There'll be not necessarily automatically just ruling out the quality of any players just because they play for Liverpool. Although, can't promise that.
Well, no, come on. Yes. No, let's be sensible about this. Oh, geez. Liverpool didn't qualify for the World Cup. Just
very, very good point. All right, so should we crack on and go through these groups then and have a look at these teams?
Well, yep, you're with us for Group A, so Brazil, Croatia, Mexico and Cameroon. There's some good stuff in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it starts at the top, right? You would imagine that if Brazil don't top this group, it's going to be perceived as an absolute disaster. There is some quality throughout the group. I think Cameroon is... they really struggle to qualify. In a lot of ways, it's the weakest Cameroon side that have been at the World Cup for quite some time. They have a reputation in the World Cup because of Italia 90 and because it took us so much by surprise. But it's not actually borne out by their kind of long-term relationship with the World Cup. They've played a lot of games in the World Cup and they have not won very many at all. So let's start at the top. We start with the team that everyone is expecting to win, the host nation. If not expecting to win the tournament, then at least expecting them to win this group. And rightly so, because they are an absolute cut above the rest of the group. I would say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ed, that we've gone through each of the teams. We've picked out some information about the coach, a few top players, a few potential weaknesses, and that sort of thing. So Phil Scolari, the coach of Brazil, once again coached them to the 2002 World Cup glory, and has kind of rebuilt Brazil really and given them back some confidence. Mauro Menezes was the previous coach and did not do a very good job and was not well liked. They've struggled because they've not played any competitive football in the lead up to this tournament, and in South American qualifying that means you don't play any competitive football for like 3 years essentially. In Europe you would only miss out on one set of qualifying, but South American qualifying takes a lot longer. So Brazil have plummeted down the world rankings, which is kind of irrelevant, but it's just because they haven't played any competitive matches. I think that the expectations were raised by the Confederations Cup performance last summer, right? They answered a lot of questions in that tournament, and I was really impressed with them then. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought they were an excellent side and interesting kind of tactical formation as well. I mean, nominally you'd kind of pull them up as a 4-2-3-1, the ubiquitous 4-2-3-1, but not really. And the way they executed it was very different, very vibrant, very attacking. I thought more attacking than some Brazil sides of recent years that had become very, very European. They felt like they had an identity. I thought they were great in the final against Spain. They've got some very, very talented players, some surprising players as well. Certainly their forwards. You wouldn't really, Neymar accepted. You don't really think of too many of their forwards as classic Brazilian forwards, but they're very, very strong through midfield, strong at the back too. Goalkeeper might be an issue because Julio Cesar has obviously had to move over to the MLS, and he was not even in the QPR side. Their backups are awful. Jefferson, Victor, I can't actually remember who's in the squad, you'll know better than me. Victor, I don't know whether you've ever checked this one out, Paul, but he is a spitting image of Petr Cech. I reckon they might be the same person.
Except he's not as good as Petr Cech, which sort of he's like maybe he's Petr Cech's bad twin brother. I mean, their real strength is they've got phenomenal centre halves. Actually, I mean, David Luiz, you could potentially say is a bit of a liability waiting to happen, but he's a fine player and he excels for the national team. You know, playing for Brazil, it's not like playing for other countries. It really isn't. There's a different relationship with the national team in Brazil. Other places too, but in Brazil in particular. Thiago Silva, one of the best centre-backs in the world. Neymar, fascinating. And you know, on the back of the Confederations Cup, it looked like Barcelona would basically be cheating to play Messi and Neymar in the same team. As it turns out, they were cheating in the way they bought Neymar, but we won't dwell on that. He has done pretty okay in his first season in Europe, and given he's a very young man moving halfway around the world, that is a big deal just to do okay.
Yeah, and he scores bags and bags of goals. He's got 30 at international level already. He's only 22. So and he rarely plays right through the centre either. He'll almost certainly come off the left. And you know, he's a huge amount of danger. I think their trouble is with the centre forward. I mean, is it going to be Fred? Do they play Joe up there? Do they play Hulk? Do they play someone else? I mean, what do you think?
I think they won't play. I think they don't play a 4-2-3-1, as you said. I think they play in a 4-3-3, and it'll be Uke on the left and Neymar on the right, or the other way round, and Fred through the middle. I think that's what they did in the Confederations Cup a lot of the time. It's interesting because Hulk, you wouldn't even. I tried fancy proper pronunciation a second ago, but I'm relapsing to Hulk. You wouldn't necessarily expect him to be effective on the left because he's such a big lad, and you kind of think of him as a number 9. But he did a really good job in the Confederations Cup for Brazil, and he's well liked by Scolari, isn't he? And Fred scored a hatful as well. Like, with that kind of creativity, it's not like Fred's incompetent, is it? You know, I mean, Joe you'd worry about. But I feel like they're all right in terms of first choice number 9.
Yeah, he's a good player and plays domestically. He's experienced. He gives them a plan B, doesn't he? Because he's a physical presence as well. So, you know, if they can keep him fit, which presumably they will, I think there's plenty of goals from elsewhere, you know. But he's not Ronaldo, right? Fat Ronaldo. And
No, fair enough.
That's the comparison that everyone has when it comes to a Brazilian number 9. Anyway, so that's Brazil. What about the others? Mexico any good? I mean, we know a little bit about Mexico, don't we?
Just a couple more things about Brazil before we move on from them. I just think it's worth shouting out their fullbacks as well. Marcelo on one side and Dani Alves on the other. That is a pretty even depth. Dani Alves might not quite be at his best anymore, but that's some fine attacking fullbacks they've got there. And Oscar, massive talent, creative talent as well. And no United interest. Although they've got some central midfielders we should maybe be thinking about. You say that about most teams in the tournament. Most teams in this World Cup have got better central midfielders than us.
Funny that actually Scolari said not long ago, I mean, he was asked about Rafael, and effectively said that Rafael was miles away from the squad. Miles and miles away from the squad. So there you go. That's our closest. Anderson hasn't played for the Brazilian team for about 4 years now. Rafael for 3. Same with Fabio, of course, not a United player anymore. So, yeah, no United interest at all in the Brazilian squad, even though we've got about 15 at United.
And a little odd fact for you. I don't know if this is particularly odd, but it's a fun fact. Actually, I don't know if it's particularly... Look, it's just a fact, all right? Phil Scolari is super Catholic. So you are definitely going to get a pilgrimage or two out of Scolari. He goes on, like, walking tours to local Catholic churches and stuff.
I was going to say, what are you going to say there? And this is walking tours to local what?
No. This is all good and holy. You know, he goes and makes offerings and stuff before major matches. And in thanks, in 2002, he went on a walking pilgrimage and stuff. So a man who takes his faith very seriously, which leads us nicely to Mexico, which of course feature a player who takes his faith very seriously. They limped through qualifying, only just recovering from having given Sven-Göran Eriksson the job of manager a few years ago. That surely can't have been a good idea. And have just suffered a massive blow with the injury of Luis Montes. Really brutal injury. I don't know if you saw any of the Mexico-Ecuador friendly, but he scored a stunning goal and then broke his leg about 30 seconds later. So it's absolutely brutal. So he's out, and he was likely to start in midfield for Mexico. And they don't have phenomenal strength in depth, and they've really struggled in qualifying. But I think that actually they're better than their qualifying campaign would suggest. And Miguel Herrera has stepped in to take over as manager. He's got this odd thing where basically he has a good working relationship with the home-based players and less of a relationship with the sort of superstar Mexican players who are playing away in Europe, which Chicharito has found to his cost.
Right, yeah, been out of the side recently. But of course, Peralta is, a fine forward, and I think, I don't know whether you've caught much of him, but I think we might find at the World Cup that he's one of the better players not to be playing at a big European club. I mean, getting on a bit now, so maybe his chance of moving to Europe is gone. And of course, traditionally a lot of Mexican players have played at home because it's quite a wealthy league, and there's been less of the incentive to shift over to Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. Higuera likes the 5-3-2. So it's going to be interesting. There's not going to be a lot of teams playing free at the back, but Mexico might just be one. Their best players, Hernandez doesn't get in the first team all the time, but he's definitely one of their best players. Giovanni Dos Santos, again, a fine forward. Some issues with Herrera there, and as you say, Oribe Peralta's been en fuego for less tries. I don't know. It just means the threes because of the three colours in the Mexican flag. United interest, of course, comes from little Chicharito Hernandez, but how much longer is that going to be United interest, I wonder?
Not much. One suspects, of course, he joined just before the World Cup last time out.
Yeah, he did, and it was exciting to see him because we both made fun of that signing, Ed. You see that top 10 goals that was on YouTube at the time, and one of them looked like it just hit the back of his head and gone in. Little did we know that was his special move at the time.
Yep. XY.
Yeah.
Triangle, square. Hits your face and bounces in.
All right, do you want a fun fact about Mexico? This is genuinely a fun fact. Miguel Herrera was a player, played for Mexico, but he missed out on the USA 94 World Cup because he punched a photographer during a game in a league match. Like, not even like a paparazzo that was bothering him away from the match, but actually punched a photographer during the game. So
that's awesome.
That's good, isn't it?
That's the kind of action I like to see.
So we come now to talk about the third team in Group A, Croatia, which is kind of an interesting one, really, because no one's really talking about Croatia, even as a dark horse. But actually, that is a squad that has got talent laced through it. Niko Kovac is the kind of legendary Croatia captain. He's replaced Igor Stimac, who was extremely unpopular and saw Croatia fail to get through the group automatically. They had to play a playoff against Iceland, and it was even touch and go in that playoff. But Croatia made it through. Niko Kovac, a completely inexperienced coach, but loads and loads of caps, 83 caps for Croatia, and former captain of the national side. No question about who their best player is for me, and that's Luka Modric. But I think Luka Modric is in like the top, 30 best players in the world or something. Maybe fewer than that.
Well, it's not just Modric that will give them quality in midfield, though. I mean, they've got Rakitic, who had an outstanding Europa League campaign, outstanding in Spain too. Mateo Kovacic, the Inter player, fine young player. I know a lot of people like him. And then up front, Mandzukic and Jelavic and Eduardo. I think you can forget, and Olic is old now, but they've got talent there, haven't they?
Well, I think Mandzukic is a cut above the rest of their forwards. I mean, Jelavic is a good centre forward, but Mandzukic is like genuine quality, isn't he? And I think you're right about Rakitic. Like the thing about Rakitic is he is kind of a number 10, right? And so he really needs to be playing the furthest forward of that midfield, and not being asked to do too much defensively. But when he gets to play creatively, he's like fantastic.
And that's actually not how Croatia have used him a lot. So we'll see. So look, what about this funny chap in midfield called Mate Males? What's that all about?
I have no idea.
Is that a call to action or what?
I find that name to be regular. There's. To me, like, I was looking at that squad and I cannot see a massive obvious weakness. Decent goalkeeper, decent centre-halves, very fine midfielders, very fine up front. Like, maybe a lack of depth up front. The fullbacks, not totally convinced by the fullbacks, but haven't seen a ton of them. Dario Serna is like getting on a bit now. Pranjic, don't know too much about. There you go, there's a Shearer thing, but
But Lovren had an excellent season
Yeah.
for Southampton, so we know there's some quality there. So yeah, no, I think they're a good side, and they're definitely in with a shout to come out of that group.
Yeah, it's a favourable draw, right? I mean, let's assume that on the opening day Brazil beat them. It's always very difficult when you're the team that loses your opening game. But even if that happens, they've definitely got enough about them to beat. Not that, like I'm saying, it's a foregone conclusion that it'd be Mexico and Cameroon, but you wouldn't be completely shocked to see that happen.
Right.
All right, fun fact about Croatia. There's no United link. There should have been a United link because we should have bought Luka Modric about 5 years ago. But apart from that, no United link. And a nice odd fact, Croatia are at the World Cup in spite of the fact that they lost to Scotland twice in qualifying, which to me is like you should definitely be instantly disqualified from the World Cup if you lose to Scotland twice in the World Cup qualifying campaign. But
it always happens to the Scots, of course, famously beat England in 1967, therefore claiming world championships. They beat Croatia twice. Croatia are going to lose to Brazil. Brazil are going to win the World Cup. It effectively makes Scotland world champions.
No question about it. Just very briefly then, Cameroon, and sorry to do them a discredit and not give them in-depth coverage, but genuine...
Yaya Toure wouldn't be happy. I mean, this is disgraceful.
No, well, Yaya Toure will be very happy when he hears me talking about him in a little bit, but the Cameroon national side is probably the weakest of the African sides in the tournament. Coached by an elderly German man, as for some reason seems to happen a lot in Cameroon. Volker Finke is the coach, and they limped through qualifying. Cameroon's really been in a pretty rough spot, and there's a bunch of divisions within the Cameroonian squad. Samuel Eto'o's huge kind of dominant personality in that group. He's very much the man. He gets his way a lot, and it does put other players' noses out of joint. They've got some very decent players. Alex Song at Barcelona, but I'd say that you could argue they've got problems in goal. They've got problems in defence. Although they do have the lovely Benoit Assokotu. He's not likely to start, but he's a fine player. I think basically, apart from maybe in the centre of midfield and up front, you could argue that there are problems pretty much everywhere in that Cameroon squad, and even up front. I mean, Samuel Eto'o's proved he can still do it, but he's definitely getting on a bit now, isn't he?
One of the central defenders called Bong. I mean, there's another call to action for you, isn't it?
You know that making fun of funny foreign names is now frowned upon in 20. There's one of the differences between the 2014 and 1956 or 54 World Cup here, Ed.
Well, are they thinkers or are they doers? We'll find out.
Yeah, so my predictions for that group is that Brazil will go through ahead of Croatia, but we will see her certainly not writing it off the Mexicans.
Very good.
So Ed, tell us about Group B.
Group of death-ish. Well, for the Australians, anyway.
Group of brutally murdered Australians.
Yeah, so this is a tough one for Australia. Spain, Netherlands, Chile and Australia, and it's probably the worst Australian side in a while. And of course, they qualified decently and now qualified through Asia, but I don't think anyone thinks that this Australian side have got much hope. I'll get on to Australia in a bit, but let's look at the favourites. Spain, obviously double European and world champions. There is still in with a shout, but I have to say my suspicion is that this is one tournament too many for them. Not only is it in Brazil, away from Europe, and Brazil have a very good side, but I think they've just got too many problems through this Spain squad and too many question marks over some key areas to not think that this is probably one too many for them. So they've still got the core, but the core through midfield is going to be Busquets and Xavi. Busquets having played about 60 games every season for the last 5 years. Xavi now well into his 30s. Other key players, Iniesta, also into his 30s. Can they get Diego Costa fit? He's the man who gives them a plan B. Otherwise, they're looking at David Villa, or maybe they'll play Fabregas up front like they did last time out. It has its problems playing the false nine there. Torres doesn't look like he can hit the backside of a cow these days. So lots and lots of problems, I think. For Spain, they're still very, very high quality. They're still going to play the way they play. It's a very economical way of playing. They'll keep possession. They will dominate many sides. That opening game against Netherlands is a crucial one now, because the loser is probably going to play Brazil in the round of 16. So, Spain need to get a result there, don't they, in order to not play Brazil next. And if they don't, then the path is a lot easier for them. If they don't beat Netherlands, and if somehow they come second, then they've got some problems. United interest, plenty of United interest. David De Gea will be third keeper. He's going to be there watching the beach, isn't he? And Juan Mata is unlikely to start any of the games. Maybe the third one if it's a dead rubber. But I was almost, we had this conversation before, I was a little bit surprised that Mata made it. Not because of the lack of quality, but just there are so many players of a similar ilk in the squad. There's Iniesta, Mata, Cazorla, David Silva. Lots and lots and lots of playmakers. Jesus Navas didn't make it, so the plan B in wide areas is no longer there. They have no plan B. They've got lots and lots of Diddy men, basically, through midfield, and they'll be playing their tippy-tappy, as those detractors like to call it. So this is it. It has to work for them. And Diego Costa's different in that, not only is he a real physical presence, but he's going to provide them with an option in the air too. Not that they'll go for it very often.
I'm really fascinated to see how, because I think my instinct about this is that you're sort of almost not quite writing them off, but you're sort of slightly, you basically think this is going to be a bridge too far, which I think a lot of people thought before Euro 2012 as well. There was a lot of discussion about where goals were going to come from in Euro 2012, and in the end, a lot of them did come from Fernando Torres. Finished that tournament as top goal scorer by sort of cheating, getting an assist in the last minute of the game, and that counted. And they sort of flattered to deceive in Euro 2012, really. They didn't come to life until the final. And that final against Italy is one of the most incredible performances I've ever seen in a football match. And if they can build their way through the tournament, as you say, I think one of the reasons that Spain have been so successful is because that style is so economical. And economical football is incredibly beneficial in a tournament setting because stamina is vital. I think people really underestimate how much a difficult early draw. The problem isn't just that you have to beat good teams early on, because you'd always say, well, you're going to have to beat good teams eventually, but you're much better off playing those good teams if they've played a bunch of other good teams before they come and play against you. And I think, if Brazil meet Spain in that second round, Brazil have got a pretty big edge because that means they've probably had easier passage through the first round.
Well, yes. So my worry for Spain is that as it gets towards the latter part of the tournament, that they will run out of legs because some of their key players are aging. Alonso, Busquets, not old, but has probably lost a lot of football, and Xavi. So that's the problem. How do they change it when Xavi's not playing? Is it Mata they bring in? Is it Cazorla? Do they tuck David Silva inside? I suspect they'll probably use him more in a wide area. Who are the two that they play in wide areas? Because it's not the same. They do not have those speed merchants in Pedro and Jesus Navas. They don't have that option, so they have lots and lots of very similar players. I was a little bit surprised at the makeup of the squad as a result. So
they also have got fast fullbacks, haven't they? And that,
well, but they've got an issue at fullback in that, although Alba will almost certainly start at left back, and he's a very fine player indeed. Carvajal will probably come into right back, and I'm not sure that he's a world class answer to that position. It's been a bit of a problem for Spain, and the two in the middle, in Ramos and Piqué, high quality, very good on the ball. Ramos gets a lot of goals from set pieces, as we saw in the Champions League final. They've got three high quality goalkeepers in Reina, De Gea and Casillas, who will start obviously. So lots and lots of strength, some question marks, and I think those question marks will be kind of much bigger as the tournament gets later on. Of course, it really could end early for them if Holland pull off a shock in that opening game.
My last question is, you seem absolutely certain that De Gea's third choice. To me, De Gea would be instant, no competition, without question first choice in that, out of those three keepers. The season that the three of those keepers have all just had, De Gea's had by far and away the best season of all of them, and I think he's probably as good, if not higher quality. Well, definitely think he's better than Reina, and the very best of De Gea is probably the better than the best of Casillas at this point. Is it just a question of experience
and status? Yeah. So Casillas is Mr. Spain and Mr. Real Madrid. So I mean, he's had 2 dodgy years, Casillas, and let's be honest, there are it's not just politics. There are reasons why he's been dropped by 2 managers now, but I think it's an absolute certainty. I mean, he's got 150 odd caps. He's most definitely going to play. De Gea may well be the obvious choice to take over. We'll see what Casillas does after the World Cup. I mean, he's still only in his early 30s, right? You know,
he's got to move, surely. He can't spend another season just playing in the Champions League. All right, they won the Champions League, but like, it's ridiculous that you say he's Mr. Real Madrid, but he's barely played a game in the league.
Well, he didn't play any games in that's it. He plays in the cups. So he's getting 20-something games a year. Yeah. Well, we'll see. So Holland, Mr. Manchester United, Louis van Gaal, will be taking our get it wide, get it in, son tactics to the World Cup. Well, no, he won't. So, you know, I said it earlier, he's basically Mr. Tiki-Taka. His teams play a lot of possession football. His teams tend to play like Barca played about 5 years ago. You know, that Barca side that won the treble, they played with a lot of width as well as possession football, and that's the way Holland have tended to play through a very good qualification campaign. Now, they've played in a couple of friendlies now with sort of 3-5-2 or 5-3-2, however you want to call it, which is a bit different, and Van Gaal's talked about that. Doing that to give Van Persie and Robin a bit more space in attacking areas. We'll see. Maybe they'll do that in the opening game because it gives them some defensive security, because he's also going to play with 2 holding players by the looks of it. 5 defenders, 2 holding players. Interesting. Not exactly total football, is it? And we'll wonder whether they'll transition into the 4-3-3 after that. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, look, they've got lots and lots of quality, Holland, but it's also a pretty inexperienced Holland side compared to many of those in the past. You know, lots of kids in this squad too. They may well end up playing in that back 3, 2 20-somethings and Ron Vlaar. Ooh, that feels a bit dodgy to me. And just because even though they're very high quality players, the chances of producing that in a tournament setting, you know, smaller. Van Gaal's the man to extract it, of course. He knows how to do it. He's a big game manager. He's had some international experience before this, failed somewhat with Holland before, but if he's a man to have a plan, yeah, he's one of the most tactically astute managers in this World Cup. He's also a brilliant strategist. You know, can he get more than the sum of the parts out of this Netherlands side that isn't full of loads and loads of star names?
I mean, it's really problematic, the draw, isn't it? Because, I mean, we'll talk about Chile next, but the very, very likely scenario in this looks like Netherlands are either going to play, well, I mean, you'd expect that if everything goes as it really should go, according to form, Netherlands are going to play Brazil in the second round of the World Cup, and that's kind of like classic World Cup stuff, isn't it? Holland against Brazil, but it does mean that they're either going to have to beat Spain or they're going to have to beat Brazil within their first 4 games of the tournament.
Yeah, and that might be a stretch, but and I think that's one of the reasons why he's talking about more space for the forwards. Actually, what he means there is that they're going to play on the break a little bit more, and maybe they'll give up some of the possession. I mean, it's also about who they're going to play in midfield without Strootman. He's snapped his anterior cruciate ligament, which is, you know, a major blow for him because he's had such a good season with Roma before that. I have to say, a couple of years ago I had my doubts about him. He was linked with United then, as he is now, and I wasn't sure that he was quite good enough for United. That's perhaps the reason why he went to Roma and not one of Europe's top clubs, but he's kind of proven himself, I think, in the last couple of seasons. Been outstanding. He's been the really key man in midfield for Holland, and the fact that he's missing as much as anything is prompting a tactical shift from Van Gaal, I think, and they'll probably play a couple of players in there that aren't super experienced. I mean, De Jong will probably start now. He might not have done before. Jordi Clasie, the Feyenoord midfielder, looks very classy. I have to say I've been impressed with the few games I've seen of him so far. I mean, Robin clearly probably play up front rather than on the wings, more in a classic 2 by the looks of it with Van Persie. There's some interesting defenders at the back. Bruno's Martins Indy looks really good, doesn't he? I don't know whether you've seen.
Love that kid. I want him so bad, not because like how good he is, but there was just this amazing article in the Guardian about how everybody loves him, and he's like this super laid back, really lovely fella, and he jumped into Louis van Gaal's arms the other day.
Yeah, no, and he looks a very classy player, and he could play with Ron Vlaar and probably Veltman, although Daley Blind has played quite a few games recently, although he's played in midfield, so Danny Blind's son. I think he might end up playing as a holding man in midfield, which is not necessarily his, or he might play at left back. Right? They haven't quite worked this one out. Yeah, and that's one of the question marks around Holland as well. A lot of young players don't feel like they're certain in every position, even though they had an excellent qualifying campaign. So definitely some question marks over Holland. What they haven't got is this kind of propensity to combust. I do not think this is a group that's going to fall apart. They've actually got a lot of players that are based in Holland. There don't appear to be the tensions that have been the classic kind of infighting. Van Gaal is a very strong personality. He's the general here. He's wearing the trousers and everyone's following him. And so I think this is a team that's together, but it's a super, super difficult draw for them.
I mean, I'm fascinated by... I mean, obviously, like I was just about to say, any United interest in this one, Ed?
Just a little bit, yeah. Just a little bit. Well, aside from the actual United interest in Robin van Persie, there's also about 15 of the squad who have been linked in some way by the Red Tops to Manchester United bid. So, Wesley Sneijder, Willie won't he? I had a joke earlier today about United's summer prospects on Twitter, which culminated in a last-minute bid for Wesley Sneijder. Could still happen. Obviously, Bruno's Martins Indy has been linked. There's been some talk about David Blind,
Memphis,
Jordi Clasie, and Memphis, the forward, Memphis Depay, a very young man, a very exciting player as well, I have to say. So, maybe United will end up with 5 Dutchmen next season. Probably not, given the way the market works out. But yeah, some definite United interest. I think lots and lots of people will be watching them with interest. Obviously, MUTV have been showing some of their friendlies in the build-up to the World Cup. Tells you something. And a bit of internal conflict, of course. It would suit United very well for Holland to crash out of the World Cup early, so Van Gaal can start his real job a bit quicker.
I mean, glorious failure is the best option for United fans, because we don't want him coming back under a cloud, having failed to get through the group, I don't think. But having kind of bravely got through the group, only to be pipped by a last-minute Brazil goal, that sounds just about ideal.
It does indeed. Elsewhere, Chile, I mean, I don't know if you remember catching Chile versus England a few months back. Potentially an outstanding team there. I do think they have some problems, so the defence is definitely a problem. They have no height at the back. That they're going to be vulnerable to set pieces. Not that Spain and Holland lump it in the box very often, but they really don't have anyone. They're all ball players. So Gary Mendel will play at the back, and he's about 4'2", and they often play with 3-4-3 as a system. You don't see that very often. Don't always. I mean, I think they'll switch between 4 and a 3 depending on who they're playing. They may well play the 3 in their 2 tougher games against Holland, and then switch to a 4 in their final game, in their game against Australia. But they're one of the most tactically flexible sides I think you'll see in the World Cup. They switch between all of them in-game as well. So watch for when they play 3 at the back and the 2 wide men split very, very wide. That's them widening the pitch as far as they possibly can in order to retain possession. They're definitely a possession side. In Matheus Fernandes and Arturo Vidal, they've got some very high quality in central midfield, and Alexis Sanchez scores bags and bags of goals at international level, quite a few at club level too. Plenty of attacking talent there. He may well play fairly centrally for Chile. Think they'll be a very good side, and even if they don't progress, they're going to be very good to look at.
Yeah, and I mean, out of all the groups, like this group, 6 of the fixtures in this group look mouth-watering, right? Not very often you get fixtures, not just because they're good teams, but the way they're going to stack up against each other is really fascinating. I mean, Chile and Spain are a really good match for each other, aren't they?
Yeah, I think there's actually going to be some... I mean, I know some people don't like tiki-taka, they think it's boring. I think there's more to it than that because there's a lot of attacking players. I actually think Chile could be more dynamic than Spain because of the nature of the type of players they've got. They've got more possibility to play through the transition, right? So they've got more pace in the side than Spain do. Which will be... I'm not saying they're a better side by any means. I'm just saying they're going to play with some interesting tactical variations that Spain maybe won't. But, I think you're right. I think there's some really excellent games in this group. Australia are definitely the outsiders as well. I do not think this is a good Australian side. They've actually got a few players who play in the A-League in the squad that will tell you something about it. Up front, they've got all sorts of problems. I mean, will they play Cahill up front on his own? Does Josh Kennedy play, the veteran, now playing in Japan? One player I do like, the Celtic player Tomas Rodic. He's a kind of, you'd almost say he's a classic number 10. And, will they be brave enough to play him right from the start? I wouldn't be surprised. Jedinak, you'll know from Crystal Palace. They've got a problem in goal. I don't think, Matt Ryan is probably going to start. Don't think he's the best. So, I think this is an Australian side that will do well not to lose 3 games. And frankly, it will surprise me if they don't.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a major shock if they don't lose 3 games, really, wouldn't it? And imagine if they do find a way to have an impact on that group. Be a pretty remarkable story. I mean, you'd think they would play without fear, really, because they really have nothing to lose. It's a horrible draw in terms of their chances of progressing, but it's a wonderful draw if you are just going for the experience, right?
Well, yeah, and a brand new coach as well, Postecoglou, only really just been appointed. He's still trying to get himself into play, so I don't think they've got anything to lose. No one has high expectations, especially back home, and it's a brand new coach. They'll probably play in a fairly attacking, what looks like an attacking setup, probably 4-3-3, morphing into 4-5-1. I think they'll give it a go. I just don't think they're good enough.
No, absolutely. Hey, Ed, have you got any fun facts for us about any of the teams in Group B?
Do you know what? I completely forgot to talk about any fun facts. Well, what's interesting, Holland, the only side in World Cup history to lose in 3 finals of the 3 they've ever played.
Man, that is not not a fun fact if you're Dutch, is it?
Yeah, not a fun fact. Australia, they picked a very odd location for their base, which means the shortest journey they have to any game is over 800 miles.
But that's just up the road in Australia, isn't it? That's they're true, just trying to settle in and feel at home.
Very true, very true. Spain, what can we say? They've never won a tournament before 2008. Perennial failures. and now they are not only double European champions and world champions, but Champions League and Europa League holders too. They hold the lot.
So they never won a tournament until 2008. They've never lost a tournament since 2008.
Quite remarkable, isn't it? But
if Spain win this World Cup, I mean, it's a huge if, but that will be the greatest achievement in the history of football. They're already possibly in with a shout of that anyway, having been the first side to win 3 major international tournaments on a bounce. But to win this one as well, I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Certainly would be. Anyway, so that's Group B. Group C, Paul, you've had a look at this, and there's some interesting matchups here too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on paper, you might instantly look at Group C and say, well, this is one of the weakest groups in the draw. And in a way it is. I mean, it's definitely one of the weakest groups in the draw, but I definitely don't think it's the weakest group in the draw. Some of the best players in the world, potentially, in this group. Colombia. So we got Colombia, we've got Ivory Coast, we've got Greece, and we've got Japan. It's a real, proper, actual shame about Falcao. Because if Falcao was fit, then you'd be thinking that Colombia would just breeze this group, basically. But Colombia heavily reliant on Falcao. He scored a lot of goals in qualifying. He got a horrible injury, and it's the biggest question mark in the squad. I don't think the final 23 has been announced, but Falcao has been training with the squad, and I'll be pretty shocked. I mean, he would have to have absolutely no chance of playing a part in order to not be picked.
I think they'll take him whatever happens. But of course, they got Jackson Martinez, who's had an outstanding season with Porto. Can he replace the goals?
We will come on to Jackson Martinez in just a minute. The coach, Jose Pekerman, Argentinian, might remember him. He managed the national side in Argentina in 2006. A hugely popular figure in Colombia because he took them to the World Cup. He was offered Colombian citizenship after qualifying, which I thought was a nice touch. Big on the old possession football, lots of high pressing. You mentioned Van Gaal being one of the most tactically astute coaches and a great strategist. Peckerman is a brilliant tactician. Like, Peckerman is all about mixing it up, playing different formations. Most of the coaches in this tournament, you can say this is the way they play, but you can't with Peckerman. They played a 4-4-2, they played a 4-5-1, they played a 4-2-3-1. Falcao is the key player, but Jackson Martinez, as you say, like, a fantastic season in Porto and not to be written off. Like, he's a very fine player. Also, doing my research, it's worth paying attention apparently to the wing-backs, Pablo Armero and Camilo Zuniga. There we go. The biggest weakness is them not having Falcao. That will definitely be kind of a hammer blow to them. And a lack of pace at centre-back. It's likely that Mario Yepes will still play.
Yeah, who's about 90.
Yeah, definitely.
Going on 38. James Rodriguez, the Monaco player, a former Porto player, very, very exciting wide player, I think. And people may have seen a bit of Freddie Guerin just because he was linked with United a few times. I mean, I have to say, I think I said on the pod earlier this season, I didn't think he was good enough for United, but he's a decent box-to-box player and the kind that you'll need.
Yeah, and he probably maybe wouldn't be good enough for ideally United, but he would probably currently improve our midfield
my gran would improve our midfield
all now. Other midfielders at this tournament. Other United links, didn't we put a down payment on Falcao once? So that brings us on to the next team in the group, which is Greece. So you think Greece, right? You close your eyes, imagine Greece. You'll be asleep before you open your eyes again, right? This is the reputation of the Greece. It's the first time in their history they've qualified for back-to-back World Cups, but their team spirit and cohesion make them greater than the sum of their parts. They're dangerous on set pieces and on the counter, but much will depend on whether Kostas Mitroglou's confidence is in one piece following his really bizarre stint at Fulham. I mean, it's one of the worst. I mean, it's not quite as bad as Falcao being injured, but Mitroglou's transfer from Olympiacos to Fulham was absolutely disastrous for the Greek national side because they finally found an answer to the problem of their lack of goals. Like, they scored 12 goals in qualifying, but they only conceded 4. They didn't concede a single goal at home, and then they sort of, having kind of snoozed their way through the group stages, they put in a really coherent attacking performance against Romania. And coached by Fernando Santos, he's not Otto Rehhagel, you know. Rehhagel was defensive to an absolute fault, but Santos isn't. Plays a 4-3-3. Up front, they'll have Mitroglou through the middle. They'll have Georgios Samaros, who never scores any goals, but is pretty useful in possession.
Doesn't have a club at the moment, though, does he?
Oh, has he left Celtic?
I believe he's left Celtic. Yeah, they didn't renew his contract. So he's in the shop window, Paul. United putting in a cheeky bid?
I suspect not. We don't need a man who, whilst he has fine dribbling skills, has scored 7 goals in 81 international appearances. That might not be exactly right, but it's something like that.
He looks remarkably like Jesus looking over Rio, don't you think?
What he looks
Christ
like...
the Redeemer. He sticks his arms out. It's almost uncanny.
He looks like a direct cross between 1979 Freddie Mercury and Fernando Morientes. You smush the two of them together, you get... he's the most 70s looking man in the world, Georgios Samaras. On the other side of the 4-3-3, with Mitroglou up front, you've got Salpingidis, who is much more direct. He's their kind of outlet on the counter-attack. They've got a problem in the centre. So the key players, essentially, just briefly to touch on Santos, it's worth pointing out that this is his last bit of his stint in charge of Greece. He said he's leaving after the World Cup, and he's done a phenomenal job with Greece. Like, the fact that they qualified for both tournaments led them through the group stage at Euro 2012, and I think they do have an outside chance of getting through this group, and if they do, it'd be just an enormous achievement. 10 million people in Greece. He was voted the Super League Manager of the Decade in the 2000s in Greece, even though he only won 1 trophy, so obviously sort of pretty highly rated. Yeah, popular
man. One observation I have about Greece: the ugliest squad in the World Cup by some distance. Sleepy Nick won't like me saying this, but they are ugly.
I don't know. They've got a certain stone-carved, rock-hewn quality. Worth also a shout for their 2 centre-backs. Like, Kostas Manolis is a young centre-back with a lot of talent, and Socrates Papastathopoulos.
Well done.
Thank you very much. I've practiced that a lot. I can spell it as well. He plies his trade at Borussia Dortmund and is a fine centre-back.
He is, yeah. Although, after you've started thinking about Greece and fallen asleep and fallen on the keyboard, that's how you spell his name.
There's no United connection, but I would remember the name Kostas Manolas. That's all I'm saying. I suspect it will at least be linked with looking at him at some point.
At least be linked with looking at him.
Yeah, well, I mean that's as the extent of it. Fun fact about Greece: they have a truly appalling World Cup record. They've only ever qualified twice before. They've only scored a goal in one of those games. So
when their most famous game is when they got spanked by a coke-laden Diego Maradona's Argentina, then you know something about it.
So this is also the first time they've ever been at a World Cup and not been drawn in the same group as Nigeria and Argentina, and one of those weird quirks. But they are playing a friendly against Nigeria tomorrow, because obviously they don't want to miss out seeing their old mates, but they're not seeing Argentina this time.
Classic stuff.
Yeah. So probably the other team with a shout for one of the best players in the World Cup that's in this group is the Côte d'Ivoire. It's such a shame that the Côte d'Ivoire's golden generation has had to wait until its third World Cup to face anything other than a proper group of death. They've just had brutal draws when their team was perhaps at its peak, and it's a little bit late. This one's come a little bit late in the cycle of their greatest generation. They're going to have to guard against complacency in this group, because it must feel like a bit of a tonic for those carrying the scars of those groups of death. Their coach, Sabri Lamouchi, a Frenchman, it's his first job in management. They qualified really strongly, didn't do very well at the Africa Cup of Nations, but he's a popular figure apparently in the Ivory Coast. He's a 4-3-3 man through and through. Key players, I mean, birthday cake gate aside, which has happened since we last recorded a rantcast, so we haven't got to talk
Great
about
stuff.
it. But Yaya Toure is, he's just had an incredible season. I do think it is completely. It's somewhat ridiculous to me that he didn't win Player of the Season. It is completely ridiculous that he wasn't in the top two in the Premier League, because he was either the best or the second best player, depending on what metrics you want to use, as far as I'm concerned. He's just an absolutely phenomenally talented player.
Yeah, but some question marks over his brother, Kolo Toure. He's been a bit ill, and is this going to affect his participation in the tournament?
Well, I think if it does, that's probably not the worst news for the Ivory Coast, because out of all their sort of golden generation players, the one who looks the least likely to be able to put together any kind of proper performance is Kolo.
Who do you think they'll play up front? I mean, Drogba, obviously, Gervinho, Kalou, Bony. There's plenty of attacking talent.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to play three of them, right? So you'd think it's going to be Kalou, Gervinho, and either Drogba or Bony. And I don't know this for sure, obviously, but I would be surprised if they don't start Drogba, because he's Drogba, right? I mean, I think his age is one of the weaknesses of this side. If this was 4 years ago, I think they would have walked the group, to be honest. They also lack a kind of genuine playmaker, because Gervinho is a bit, hit and miss, and he's pretty much a striker as well, but he's been on form, right, this season. I don't watch a lot of Serie A, but he scored a lot more goals than he did when he was playing in England.
He's had a good season with Roma, yeah, definitely. I wonder whether they won't play Yaya in a more attacking role, and then just kind of, put Tiote and Zakora or Ramaric around him, and those guys will just kind of protect Yaya from flying cakes.
Yeah, exactly. Any United connections? Hey, listen, Yaya, we'll make you a face cake. Every year, without fail, you'll get a birthday cake with your own face on it.
I did love how multiple clubs sent him a cake.
Awesome. Talking of which, we picked out a fun fact about all these players. I know we've mentioned all these teams have got a fun fact mentioned about them. So, Ivory Coast standard bearer and their best player is legitimately possibly going to leave the club he's at, who've just won the championship in the country they're in, because nobody gave him a cake. That is the funnest fact of any of the fun facts we've got lined up for you. We're not going to top that. It's untoppable.
Indeed.
So Japan.
Few United connections in this one. Well.
Yeah. Well.
One.
You say. You say a few. I was like, have I missed something? Japan will be pleased with their draw as it offers a legitimate chance of progress beyond the group stages. Everything you think you know about Japan is probably just about correct. They play nice possession football, fine technical players, but they lack for physicality and they have defensive frailties. It might sound like a kind of football cliche 101, but it's absolutely the truth. Coached by Alberto Zaccaroni, because apparently they just wanted to get like a proper European tactician as a coach. Very experienced, managed 13 clubs in Italy, won Serie A with Milan. Apparently absolutely loved in Japan. They're going to play a 4-2-3-1. They play 4-2-3-1 all the time. Sadly for Shinji, he's probably not going to get to play at number 10, ironically, but he's going to play off the left. But Ed, as you will attest, playing off the left in a 4-2-3-1 is not the same as playing off the left of a 4-4-2.
Gnev tells me otherwise, so I have to doubt myself. Funny thing is, Honda, though he's a very good attacking midfielder, he's not a playmaker, right? And, he went to Milan. He's had an all right second half of the season. I would be tempted to play Kagawa through the middle. They won't do that. Definitely won't do that. But Kagawa will have no defensive responsibilities. He's going to get a free roll on that left-hand side, and we'll see where it takes them. They weren't brilliant, were they, during qualifying? So do you expect to see much from them?
I mean, the thing is, they qualified comfortably, right? They weren't brilliant during qualifying, and the real problem has come as well since they've started playing friendlies against the bigger sides. I don't know, you'd have to say that this is a great group for them, right? I mean, it couldn't be much better. There's maybe two worse groups than this. And also, I feel like they stack up quite well against the style of play they're going to come up against. So one of the games I'm most looking forward to in the opening fixtures is Ivory Coast against Japan, because it is such a massive clash of styles. You've got one team which has got this incredibly dominant physicality and sort of slightly lacks, not attacking prowess, because they've got oodles of attacking prowess, but like technical creative prowess. That isn't the strength of the Ivory Coast. And Japan, it's like the exact opposite, where you got all these like quick, small players. And I think it's fascinating that they play Honda at number 10, because he also slows the play down, right? He's not as fast as the rest of them, but he got a really good working relationship with Kagawa, apparently. And we've seen at United, like Kagawa plays really well on the left. When Mata's played at number 10, Kagawa's done brilliantly on the left, and that is that's a good match, isn't it?
I think it's the formation rather than the personnel, but there's something in that too. Yeah, I thought you did very, very well there, Paul, not to churn out a load of cliches about African and Japanese teams. Very impressed. Let's see if Shiro can match you.
Thank you. United connection. Oh, beloved Shinji of my heart. I hope he has a really good World Cup. It's like I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does.
Here's a question for you, Paul. Why did Japan pick a base in southern Japan when they've got 2 games in the north and 1 in the west?
Do you mean in southern Brazil?
Yeah. So they're travelling 1,819 miles, 1,646 miles, and 929 miles to each of their games. I think that will... I know I'm being glib about it, but I think that makes a difference, because it means they've got a 3.5 hour flight back, and rather than an hour, and in a very tightly packed tournament, that rest, 3.5 hours is half a day. That's a big difference. All
of their best players all play in Europe, so they're all used to flying long distances before their internationals. Like 3.5 hour flight to them is like, it's like a bus ride to us.
It's not. Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of international travel, as you well know, and I would say this is going to take something out of them. But hey, we'll see.
Odd fact about Japan: it's not a fact. It's the truth. Though they are almost certainly going to be the side at the World Cup with the coolest haircuts. They almost always are.
I'm not sure that's a fact, Paul. I think you were cheating.
It's a fact. Like, have you seen the squad pictures of Japan? Just every single one of them, pretty much, has got some version of an awesome anime character manga haircut. It's very cool. I like it. They're our only hope for Mullet Watch as well. Like, Mullet Watch was at its peak with the Eastern European sides of the mid-2000s, but it's really dipped off since then. But I think Japan are like the one standout hope that there might be a mullet somewhere in the World Cup. So tell us about Group D.
Well, I don't think people will be watching this one much. Bit dull, isn't it? England's group, or Uruguay's group, or Costa Rica's group, or Italy's, depending on your perspective on this one. So Uruguay, Costa Rica, England, and Italy. And let's take it in that order, because I'm not necessarily saying that's the order it will finish, but I think there's some more interest outside of England. Uruguay, very, very interesting side, because they've got loads and loads of quality, but they really struggled in qualification. They ended up playing Jordan in a 2-leg playoff in order to get to the World Cup, and that's how bad they were, given that there was no Brazil in qualification either. So effectively they're the 6th best South American side, and there's only 5 countries in South America. So that's how bad they were in qualification, but they've got way more talent than that. I mean, Suarez, everyone knows, of course. Cavani, everyone knows, of course. But you know, through the back four, they got some quality in Caceres and Godin. You'll remember from Atletico Madrid, Pereira. In central midfield's an interesting one, because they'll probably play Rios and Ladero. Maybe Rodriguez might play wide. They might play a 4-3-3. They might play a 4-4-2. They've mixed in between. Plenty of quality in attacking. They'll probably play on the break very, very well. They're a better side than they showed in qualification, and I think they're going to cause some trouble for Italy and England. And I mean, everyone will be looking at Suarez, of course. He's got this knee injury. Will he be fit in time? I think they'll do anything to get him fit, and as we've seen with Liverpool, you can surround a very, very high quality player with some average players and get a lot out of them. And if there's a man that can do it, it's the coach Oscar Tabarez, who's vastly experienced. He's had multiple internationals and club jobs. He's been there, done it all. He's 68 now, so hugely experienced. I think this is his last tournament, possibly his last job. I think they'll get quite a lot out of this squad. I think he's fashioned them into a good unit. I think the players will rise to the occasion that they didn't do in qualification. They had some trouble in qualification, especially away from home. I think almost in their own backyard. This is calling on the best tournament for Uruguay for some time. I mean, made the semi-finals, didn't they, in 2010, but a very patchy record before that. And I think they'll do all right.
Yeah, they won the Copa in America in 2011 as well. It's weird, their qualifying thing, because they sort of, they proved themselves the best side in South America, and then, as you say, ended up finishing the 6th best side in qualifying, or 5th best, not including Brazil.
Yeah, too many good players not to do well, I think. And I didn't mention Walter Gargano either. Plays in Parma. I think he's a very, very good player. I'm kind of surprised he's not at a better club than Parma at the moment. Lots of quality there. Maybe a bit thin in the squad, so we'll see. See whether they get out the group. I mean, I suppose they're not favourites to get out the group with England and Italy there, although I think they're going to give England a really tough game. And I suppose that brings me on to England, which everyone will be watching. I think we said when we saw the initial squad a couple of weeks ago that it was brave and bold from Hodgson. Lots of young players in there. He's gone for players with pace. He says he's going to instigate an attacking policy. It looks like they're going to play a sort of 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 system, going away from the 4-4-2. Didn't pick Andy Carroll, so not going to lump it. Although I suppose they do have in Ricky Lambert an option there if they really want to do it. But it looks like as a squad they're set up to play football on the ground. They're going to have to do that because I don't think they can be chasing the game around in Manaus, where the opening game against Italy comes, up in the jungle. It's going to be super hot and super humid, and that's the worst part, isn't it? Not the heat necessarily. And so, maybe the mixture of young players, a bolder attacking system for England, and less expectations means that we'll come out of this tournament with a surprise. Maybe. What do you think?
I mean, I really hope so. I have to say, there's two things that have combined to make me sort of be inclined to want England to do well. One of them, three actually. One of them is the departure of John Terry. So, that really helps. I don't love Steven Gerrard, but I'd have him over John Terry in likability stakes every day of the week. Not that saying very much. The second thing is the band are not going.
Hey!
It's genuine relief to hear that that's the case. Any corporation who ends up sponsoring the band to go over there, I am boycotting their products for life and campaigning for others to boycott their products for life too. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It looks like FIFA have banned the band, so well done, FIFA. And of course, the third thing is the presence of Danny Welbeck. I mean, having watched a friendly the other day, everything looks like it could work on paper, but it has not clicked yet. And if they're going to have a good tournament, they're going to have to click into the tournament. And they're going to have to click into the tournament pretty quickly, because if they get beaten comfortably by Italy, the route out of the group looks very complicated, because you wouldn't want to have to face Uruguay knowing that you have to attack all the way through, being very vulnerable on the counter. There is a lack of pace in the back four. Cahill, I've been impressed by Cahill, I have to say. I didn't rate him particularly highly, but he has had a really good season and he's been good for England. Jagielka, I mean, David Moyes rates him very highly and he's a decent player, but he's not Rio Ferdinand in his prime, or Sol Campbell in his prime, or Tony Adams or whatever.
And there's a problem in central midfield too. I mean, here we're expecting a lot of Steven Gerrard, who's had a very good season, that kind of holding role for Liverpool. He'll play a similar role for England, but he is knocking on 35 now, so that's an issue. Will Henderson match up to the best at a tournament level? He's had a good season, but I'm not sure still. Wilshere could come in, but his fitness has been dodgy, of course. So they have a problem in central midfield. Hodgson does have options, though. He can play other players through the middle. I mean, Lampard's in the squad, Oxlade-Chamberlain in the squad too. He could play three in central midfield and Rooney up top on his own. He can shift Sturridge wide. I mean, he'll probably do that anyway. Welbeck, if he starts, will play in a wide position. I think tactically, there's a good chance of Welbeck starting. As for the other sort of United connection, Smalling and Jones are effectively back up. It looks like Jones will be fit. There were some doubts about that. So look, I think there's a lot of positives. I feel more, not that I'm an England fan per se, but I feel more positive about the vibe around this squad than at Euro 2012, where Hodgson had only just come into the job and basically played a very negative, direct style, which was very ugly to look at. And I think England will play nicer football this time round. Can they adapt to the conditions, though? And I don't mean that in some kind of cliched way, because actually, they play in Sao Paulo and Belo Horizonte, which won't be hot. But they're a long way from home. They don't necessarily travel well, English players. Sorry, but they don't. And Manaus is in the middle of the jungle, and that's going to be super difficult. So they've got an awfully difficult start to the tournament. They've done the prep right. I think they're going to spend a week in Miami. By the time you listen to this, they'll have played Ecuador in a friendly in Miami, and then Honduras after that. And then they've got a week in Brazil before they kick off.
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting, the Rooney question, and we talked about this on the phone after the Peru game. There's a few things to note from the Peru. I mean, look, first of all, Peru were rubbish, but England's ball retention was superb. Like Jordan Henderson, 90+% pass completion, 100-odd passes, and nobody below 88% pass completion. Pass completion is not the be-all and end-all, but it's a relevant stat for England in particular, given how poorly they've used the ball in the past. The one player with the notably worse pass completion than the rest of his colleagues was Wayne Rooney, but they're not going to have to worry about it, because he's just going to melt in Manaus, and they're just going to have like a pool of Rooney at the end of that, and they're just going to have to put him in a bag and send him home to Colleen, and he's going to have to sit in a freezer for a few days until he kind of forms back into the shape of Wayne Rooney.
Yeah, you haven't seen red until you've seen Wayne Rooney's face in Manaus. This is going to be interesting. Yeah, and also, look, I know this will be controversial on a United podcast, but I think he's potentially a weak link for England, because he's going to play in that number 10 role. And I think if they stuck him up front, asked him to hold the ball up and run the channels as a sort of classic number 9, they'd be getting more out of him than they will do. They're trying to play with him as their principal playmaker. And I don't think he's a good number 10. He's just not. There are probably about 10 number 10s better than Wayne Rooney at this World Cup, and he is a weak link as a result. I think he will give the ball away, and I don't think he's going to unlock defences. They're going to hope that he creates something and that he is able to interchange with Sturridge and Welbeck in a flexible fashion, and maybe that's what will give them some attacking penetration.
I mean, I think I would probably play him in Manaus, where the pace is going to be slower, and that would be it. That would be the last game I'd start him in. But of course, I'm sure he'll start every game. But I would play Sterling, Sturridge, and Welbeck up front.
Yeah. So one of the questions around possession. I mean, you talked about England keeping possession. And I think actually in the group stages, it's not going to be that much harder for them, right? So then maybe Uruguay will press a bit, but actually their opposition won't, right? So Italy are not a hard pressing side, and Costa Rica will sit back. And so I think they're lucky with the draw in that respect, because I think if they played a side that pressed high, they'd struggle with possession. And they don't, and so they may have a decent amount of the ball. And you'd expect Italy's superior quality in central midfield to tell in that first game. And I'm sure that England will be playing on the break. I mean, they're going to set up like that, right? They're going to use some pace and try and catch Italy in the break. And it might work. You know, this is, I don't think, an Italy squad that's anywhere near as good as the one in 2006, say. You know, they've still got Pirlo. Yes, he's still going to run the show. Thiago Motta's a good player. Daniel De Rossi will anchor the midfield, and Verratti, the PSG player who's really had a good season, will be in there too. So, you know, they've got some quality in central midfield. There's a lot of questions about their forwards. Balotelli looks like he's been kicked out of Milan. Will he start? Will they start with Immobile instead, who's come into the side? They've lost Ricardo Montolivo, which is a big blow for them, I think, because he's very high quality on the ball. So there's still some questions about this Italy side. Buffon is ageing. Cellini and Bonucci, probably starting the central defence, are slow. I think it's fair to say. You know, they're hard but slow, so they could be affected by pace. So plenty of question marks over this Italy side. Tactically, I think Prandelli will set them up to keep the ball. They'll try and use the pace of Immobile and Balotelli when they can. I think they will work in a slightly more attacking fashion than, you know, the cliched Italian 5-3-2, and we'll see some good stuff from them. But I don't think it's a classic Italy side.
No, of course we would have said that, and I think we probably did say that in the preview for the European Championships, and they really impressed in that tournament, didn't they? Pirlo put on masterclass after masterclass. Balotelli was really impressive in that tournament, and it just really came together for him. And to, you know, World Cup cliche 101, right? Italy are a tournament side, but they really are. Like when it's come together for Italy, generally speaking, people weren't expecting it to come together. Nobody had Italy as favourites for the 1982 World Cup or the 2006 World Cup. I think you're right. I think they're short, but that's what people tend to think about Italy. So it wouldn't be a complete shock if they pulled off a complete shock, if you know what I'm saying.
Look, they've got some quality. They do have some quality. Of course, talking of United connections, Giuseppe Rossi not made it to the tournament. Yeah. And this is sad, isn't it? Because he was desperately trying to overcome a second major knee injury of his career. Only came back in April, didn't play many minutes after that, and had a friendly against Ireland the other night. Wasn't very good and has been dropped. It's a real shame for him, but they've got other talent. I mean, Immobile had the Torino forward had a very good season. Balotelli is hot and cold. He's always been hot and cold. And Alessio Cecchi, the other Torino forward, I think is a very good player too. But these are not guys who are playing at the very highest level of European football.
They're not, but as you say, Balotelli's hot and cold, but when he's hot, right? And he was extremely hot the last time he played tournament football for Italy, so...
Yeah. The other question for me is in central midfield, are they going to last the pace? I mean, Daniel De Rossi in his 30s now, and Pirlo 35. That's a big question for me. You know, De Rossi's having to provide a lot of energy there. So I think the two Paris-based players, Verratti and Mossa, will have a big part to play in that midfield.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when England play Italy, it's going to be really interesting to see whether Hodgson assigns either Welbeck or Rooney or both in a rotating basis to Pirlo. I think he probably shouldn't he? Because when we played them at Euro 2012, Pirlo just had the freedom of the park, and it was disastrous for England. It was tactically naive, and I can't see that happening again. So the team that I don't know anything at all about in this group, to go back to the Alan Shearer routine, is Costa Rica. What can you tell me about them?
Well, Paulo Wanchope is retired, unfortunately, so...
I love that kid. What a player.
Well, there's a United connection for you as well. Remember that goal he scored for Derby all those years ago, where he danced through the entire United side to score. Interesting. I mean, in Jorge Pinto, they've got a man who's vastly experienced. The coach, he's Colombian, and he took the job part way through the qualification process. This is his 18th. That's it, 1-8 coaching job. So he's massively experienced, and then nobody's favourite. None of their players play at top clubs through Europe. Probably the guys who are most familiar to you are ex-Fulham forward Brian Ruiz, now at PSV. Joel Campbell, the Arsenal player, scored a blinding goal for Olympiacos, where he's spent the season on loan against United, so you'll remember him. Plenty of talent. He's a guy lots and lots of people are talking about. So can they get the ball to him? The rest of it is a problem, right? So they've switched between 4-4-2 and 4-5 or 5-4-1, 4-5-1 through the qualification process. They've played a lot of sides that you'd expect are better than them. They will be the worst team in the group by some distance, and they'll try and play on the counter-attack. And in Ruiz, they've got a player who's got plenty of talent on the ball, and in Campbell, they've got a guy with bags and bags of pace. So they might be set up well to do that. Brian Oviedo's missing, broke his leg. At the back, there's Junior Diaz, plays for Mainz, had a very good season in Germany. Oscar Duarte, some people who follow Belgian football might know him, plays for Club Bruges. And a couple of randoms, and I think I say that it sounds like I don't know much about them, but I don't know that much about them. But having done some research on YouTube and read lots of profiles of all their players and had a look at some of their tactics through all their qualification process, it will be a major shock if they pull anything off from any of these games. This is not a super strong Costa Rica squad, but they haven't made many World Cups, right? So this is a major outing for them.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot and say, who do you think is going to qualify from this group? Because I just can't pick it. I really, really want England to do well in this tournament. I can't quite explain why, apart from the three reasons I gave earlier, but I just would love it. But it seems like, I mean, you said that Uruguay aren't favourites to qualify, but I'm not sure why Uruguay and Italy are not the two standout favourites to qualify from this group.
Well, they're not, because there are holes in that Uruguay squad. All right, and there are areas where they're filling in players who are not as good as their top players. So in Cavani and Suarez, outstanding striking options. Of course, Diego Forlan is in the squad.
Yeah, amazingly.
Player of the tournament last time out, remember? And he's playing in Japan now, coming right to the end of his career. His last tournament for sure, perhaps even full retirement after this.
It is. He said he's retiring after this tournament.
Yeah,
so.
There you go. So he's going to be a respected option from the bench, right? You know, he's definitely got quality, technical player, probably come on in a deeper area than in his youth if he comes off the bench, and so there's definite quality there. But through midfield, do you think England have got a chance? And if the narrative plays out like this, Italy beat England in the first game, and I think England would do well to get a draw, and I think they'd be very happy with a draw out of that game. And especially given the location and all of that start the tournament. So if Italy beat England and England do not beat Uruguay, then I think England are heading home. And it'll come down to goal difference then. It wouldn't surprise me if Uruguay got a draw against Italy. With it not being their first game, I think there's an advantage. Definitely they'll be up and running, having played Costa Rica first. So I don't think the draw has panned out well for England. They'd have much preferred a game against Costa Rica in the south, in Rio or in Sao Paulo or something like that, but it's not happened. So I think England are marginal. I'm going to call it Italy, England, Uruguay, Costa Rica. Just.
So it's like a group of sort of quite serious injury. Not life-threatening, but it hurts. It's not a group of death because none of the teams are quite that good, but it is a group where one very good team, or at least pretty good team, is going to be going home.
Yeah, and interesting fact. Yeah, it's 48 years of hurt. That's the interesting fact.
Oh, so long.
And do you know what the worst thing about that is the song said 30 years of hurt, so that's how old we are, Paul. That's how old we are. Last time England played in Brazil, 1950 World Cup, beat Chile, but lost to Spain and the USA. I don't think that will happen this time round, mainly because we won't play all of those sides. So they are all at the tournament, of course. Last time Uruguay won the World Cup was in Brazil. Omens, maybe.
Of course, yeah.
Yep. Italy
1950 and all
screwed up
that.
their travel arrangements. They will be flying over 1,000 miles to each game. England will be doing that mega trip up to Manaus first, but then Belo Horizonte and Sao Paulo for the 2 other games. Nice, easy trips from Rio once they got through the traffic around Rio. And if Rooney, and this is a big if, has avoided the favela prostitutes.
Oh, so
it's a big
harsh.
if, Paul. It's a big if.
So harsh.
Funnily enough, here's another fun fact. I've stayed in the hotel that is next to the Royal Tulip. I couldn't afford to stay at the Royal Tulip. A bit expensive. But right next door, so I know exactly where it is, just along from Lebon Beach, so just outside Rio. There is a massive favela. It goes up the hillside. But aside from that, they've got a very nice training camp just in the shadow of Sugarloaf Mountain, so the other side of Rio. So they actually have got quite a long trek to go training every day. For those of you that know Rio, and they will enjoy some magnificent sights while they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, while you talk about Rio, the one thing that we've not done on this podcast, which given, we talk about stuff like this quite often, I think it's probably worth mentioning. The reason that I'm not talking about the politics of this World Cup is because I just haven't educated myself about it yet. I feel like maybe I should, and if I'm really honest, I feel like one of the reasons I'm avoiding educating myself about the politics of the World Cup is because I don't want to not enjoy the World Cup, and that is not a great thing to admit, if you know what I mean. And I feel like I can't really live with that.
Fine. Look, there are politics because Brazil is a country of extremes of wealth and poverty. They're a very small middle class. Actually, anyone who's listening who's been to Rio, it feels like, I wouldn't say European city, but it feels like a wealthy city. Actually, outside of the favelas, it's there's clearly money there. There's a lot of middle class people, but a lot of the country is not rich at all, and they've spent an awful lot of money doing up stadiums. A number of them will be white elephants afterwards, and there's a lot of controversy. So slum clearance, police brutality, the money spent, corruption in terms of how those contracts were awarded. So it is controversial. Even more controversial, the mayor of Rio said this week that Rio beats London in every scenario, although, actually I think much of this is fair. He said in terms of the sights and the people, and what else did he say? The economy, and anyway. Fair enough. Ipanema Beach, Copacabana Beach, Leblon Beach, which is a very pretty one, by the way. Sugarloaf Mountain, Christ the Redeemer, the mega statue of Christ over the scenery, the lagoon in the middle of town, stunning city. So he's probably right.
Is it really bad if you say that you think that Christ the Redeemer looks like Jimmy Hill?
He does a bit. He does it. He's got the chin for it. Mixed between Giorgio Samaras and Jimmy Hill.
All right. So politics aside, on to Group E. Group E, the one everyone wanted. Somehow, Switzerland are a seeded team at this World Cup, and everyone wanted. That was the seeded team that everyone wanted to be in the same group as. France, who like England were in pot 3 of the draw, will be very, very glad that they ended up in this group because it's a lot easier than England's group. Switzerland are not the snooze fest that everyone remembers them as. In qualifying, there were quite a few quite dull games, but they did draw 4-4 with Iceland, which I think that those of us who watched Switzerland in like the World Cup in 2006 probably could not conceive that they would ever, in the history of time, score 4 goals in one match.
That's like the World Cup of the financial crisis. You've got the solid Swiss bankers, never going to melt down ever, versus Iceland, fully leveraged up to the eyeballs, went into total meltdown.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Absolutely. So Ottmar Hitzfeld, a serial winner in German football, won the Bundesliga twice with Bayern Munich, twice with Dortmund, won the Champions League once with each of them, and he's yet another 4-2-3-1 chap. And the 3 will feature Xherdan Shaqiri, who, a player that is perennially linked with a move to one of the the big clubs, then moved to Bayern Munich, where he's sort of a fringe figure, really, isn't he? Slightly.
Very fringe figure, yeah.
So we think he's probably going to move in the summer. Other key players include the Juventus right-back, Stefan Lichtsteiner, a very fine player.
Yep, very fine player.
Fans of Football Manager will all appreciate Stefan Lichtsteiner. There's never enough good fullbacks in Football Manager, and he's one. And Gökhan Inler, who I've got an extreme affection for no other reason than in about the year 2020, I had him at United for 10 years and he never played, but I never heard a peep out of him. He never complained once, so no doubt, given Football Manager's fierce levels of accuracy, Gökhan Inler is an easygoing fella. Got a heck of a shot on him as well, hasn't he?
He certainly has, yeah. He's a very good player. I mean, others to look out for: Kasami, the Fulham player. He's likely to get a game or two in midfield. Probably won't start. Ricardo Rodriguez, the left back. I think he's a very good left back. An option for United if the move for Luke Shaw doesn't work out, I think, because he's at Wolfsburg. Fabian Schär, outstanding defender. I wonder whether he'll move on to bigger and better things from Basel this summer, especially given that Basel side is kind of breaking up at the moment. Granit Xhaka, Borussia Mönchengladbach player, ex-Basel player, very, very good midfielder. They're seeded because they're a good side and they've got some good players.
Yeah, absolutely. But they've also got Philippe Senderos, and he's probably going to play.
Yeah, and Giroud. So, all those great players we talked about, then Senderos and Giroud.
Yeah, so there's a problem there. United Connection, I'm sure we will be linked to people in the Swiss side during the World Cup. I've no doubt about that. But also, Ottmar Hitzfeld may have won a couple of Champions League finals, but there was one he didn't win now, wasn't there?
There certainly was.
All right, my favourite fact that I could find about Switzerland's football team. In 2006, they became the first side ever to be knocked out without conceding a goal during the course of play. They lost on penalties to the Ukraine in one of the worst games of football that's ever happened.
I remember that one.
Oh,
yeah.
It's funny because when you're watching it, you're thinking, it's like this World Cup, right? You watch all the games. But I just remember being like, asking myself existential questions about the purpose of, like, what am I doing with my time watching that game? I'm pretty sure I didn't see the penalty shootout because I gave up on it because it was so dull.
Well, it's one of those games where you hope the penalty shootout is only three kicks each, right? Let's just cut it short. Let's be merciful.
Let's definitely skip extra time, but they didn't. But yeah, that is not Switzerland. Much like Greece are not the Greece that you remember, except that Switzerland are a step up in quality from Greece. Ecuador, also in this group. Tony V's Ecuador faced tragedy in qualifying. Chucho Benitez died at just 27 years old. The thing about that is, of course, it was a terrible personal tragedy for all the people that know him, and we've all seen what a profound effect it's had on Valencia. But it also had like a massive, massive footballing effect on Ecuador because their team was kind of built around Benitez, not because he was such a phenomenal player, because he was a fine player, but not of the very, very highest quality. But he just served a particular function, so they'd always play a 4-4-2, and he would be the player who would like drop deep and break forward. And they haven't got a natural replacement for him. So their coach, Ronaldo Rueda, another Colombian. I'm pretty sure that Colombia is the most represented country in management terms. He previously guided Honduras to the 2010 World Cup. He's likely to stick with a 4-4-2. We'll see Tony V on one flank playing the Tony V way. Jefferson Montero plays on the other side, but he's much more likely to kind of cut inside. It's almost like playing Nani on one side and Tony V on the other. And Jefferson Montero is kind of hit and miss in a similar way to Nani. So I think that'll be quite familiar to United fans. And the thing about the United connection is the Valencia that plays for Ecuador, he tends to be that best version of Valencia. You know, we see it from time to time at United, and it's always like electrifying when you do see Valencia playing well, but he really does tend to excel for his national team.
Yeah, and has in the past played sort of centrally, but I agree with you. I think he'll end up playing on the right side of a 4-4-2 in this Ecuador side. So England will get to see them very shortly.
I mean, I have to say, they were distinctly unimpressive in their friendly against Mexico, and I think they'll do well to get out of the group, because I think the two teams most likely to get out of the group are Switzerland and France. Before we move on to France, odd fact about Ecuador: guinea pigs are a delicacy in Ecuador. This is...
as they are in Peru and Bolivia.
It's just unacceptable.
They're quite tasty, actually.
Honestly. Look, I mean, obviously I'm a radical vegetarian anyway, but seeing a tiny little guinea pig...
No, they're not the same. They're actually quite big, so they're more like the size of a cat.
Okay, well...
And you kind of, after you've kind of skinned them and gutted them, you stick a skewer up there and you kind of roast them like spit roast
disgusting
style. Or rotisserie style. Yeah, pretty good. It tastes like the kind of dark meat from a chicken. Not exactly the same, but a bit like all rabbit, something like that.
That rabbit was exactly the comparison that I saw. But don't eat guinea pigs, don't eat rabbits, don't eat chickens. That's my view anyway. So talking of eating chickens, France. Expectations are moderate around Les Bleus given their spectacular combustion at the last World Cup. It is very unlikely that we're going to see anything as awesome as the France players refusing to get off a bus for hours on end.
Well, no, Nasri's not in the squad, so squad harmony has resumed.
Patrice is, though, and he was like ringleader number one and all that. However, there is enormous quality in the French squad, and under Deschamps they made a creditable attempt at qualification from the group that included Spain. They didn't manage it and had to face a playoff. They went 2-0 down to the Ukraine in Kiev, and then just a phenomenal performance when everyone had written them off. Probably the best France have played since the 2006 World Cup, when they beat Ukraine 3-0 in Paris. And the thing about France is, if you look down that side, there is bags and bags of quality. So Paul Pogba and Blaise Matuidi, that is one of the best central midfield twos anywhere in the tournament. Benzema's easily one of the best centre forwards in the tournament. Ribéry's one of the best wingers. You've got Sagna,
Griezmann possibly on the other side.
Absolutely. He's like, I would say he's like a slight step down in quality, but he's a fine player. Evra, I mean, we've all seen Patrice struggle a bit this season.
Well, I think that's their weakness, right? So,
yeah.
They probably play Varane and Koscielny, or maybe Mangala, but he's only really recently come into the reckoning. But in Evra and Debuchy, the fullbacks, they've got some problems defensively.
Yeah, absolutely. Didier Deschamps, the water carrier of legend, replaced definitely publicly misogynistic and possibly privately racist coach Laurent Blanc. After
it wasn't that private about it, was it?
It was a meeting that he didn't know was being recorded. I'm not saying that makes it okay. I just mean that means he keeps his views to him. He's aware that he can't do that in public. But misogyny, that's completely fine in public, according to former Manchester United legend Laurent Blanc.
Well, it is in France, isn't it? I mean, it's a country of misogynists. They invented misogyny.
And
just wild generalisations here.
Sadly, also a country of racists. I mean, one of the reasons it would be lovely to see France do well is the national football side has often stood in opposition to the more right-wing element in France. I mean, 98 was an absolute victory for the multicultural French identity, and success in this World Cup would be yet another, and that's really seriously under threat. I mean, we think we have it bad here with UKIP, but the National Front got huge electoral support. I mean, no turnout always wins, right, in European elections, but huge relatively to what would be any kind of level of comfort. So yeah, it'd be from a political perspective, it's always nice to see multicultural France do well. And
it's very much that kind of squad makeup as well. I mean, so weaknesses, I talked about the fullbacks. I also think squad depth's a weakness here. So
yeah,
I know they've got some real quality, but you go outside of the 11 you sort of looked at there, and you're going down into some lower quality players. So Payet and Grenier and Cabaye and Valbuena and Giroud. Giroud's their backup option, is he?
He is, but the thing is, you say that's a lack of quality, and I mean it is a lack of top flight quality, but what Deschamps has done, like in not picking Nasri, is he's picked players that will play as a team, because like Giroud is not a bad player, he's just a player that sometimes plays badly. I have to say, Benzema is also a player who sometimes plays badly, and I really feel like if they're really going to progress, they're going to need Benzema firing on all cylinders.
I have to say I was disappointed that Marseille's Rod Fanny didn't make it.
Of course you were, Ed. Deschamps a 4-2-3, one-man, Pogba and Matuidi behind, probably Ribéry, Griezmann and Cabaye, Benzema up front. Sounds good. Like I think it works. I'm pretty excited about the French prospects. The odd fact that you have to mention about France is they didn't qualify for the World Cup in 1994. Then they won the World Cup in 1998. Then they went home in 2002 without scoring a goal. Then they got to the final, were pretty unlucky, and like Zidane's implosion away from winning the World Cup in 2006. Then you had the ridiculous disaster of 2010. So really, they're probably going to win this World Cup, or at least go on a deep run if the sequence is to continue.
Yeah, well, they got lucky with the draw, so I think they'll make it out the group easily, and then we'll see where they go from there. I mean, you're right, they've got loads of quality. I think they may well fall down in those wide positions, and they may well suffer for lack of squad depth. We'll see, but I don't think we're going to get the fireworks like we did in South Africa 4 years ago. I think you're right about that too.
So the best bit about their draw is that Honduras are in the same group as them. Now this is a team that I do not know a lot about, so this is all, and
they are abysmal.
Yeah, this is all stuff I've researched. So they qualified behind Costa Rica, but ahead of Mexico. But I think Mexico are a considerably better team than Honduras. It's massive for them to be at the World Cup, especially as they qualified without needing a playoff. They are distinctly lacking in star power and are going to require massive overachievement to get out of the groups. Another Colombian, Luis Fernando Suarez, is their coach. 4-4-2.
It's uncanny, this, isn't it?
It is. It's weird, isn't it? It's like Colombians just get the job in all the Central American countries. He managed Ecuador in 2006 when they got through the groups stages. Apparently, his reputation in Honduras is that he's very well liked by the public, but he lets the players get away with a bit much. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that would be a bad thing, really. You might as well make them happy, given they're not that likely to do too well. Palacios is still a key player for them, in spite of the fact that...
Which one? Jerry, Wilson? They've got another brother, haven't they? They've got about 15 Palacios brothers playing.
I do mean Wilson is...
Wilson, Johnny and Jerry.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Is Johnny in the squad? I think Jerry is, but I'm not sure if Johnny's made it. But he may well have done. Yeah, even though Palacios hasn't played a league game in 100 years or whatever it is, he's still a key player for Honduras. And their front two of Jerry Begston and the well-named Carlo Costly scored a lot of goals in qualifying. So, that's what got them there. There is no United connection, but there are hell of Wigan Athletic collections. Basically, everyone in Honduras has played for Wigan Athletic at some point.
Uncanny, isn't it? Or dodgy. Pick the one you want.
That's going to double up as my odd fact, because I got nothing. Their nickname is bicolor, meaning two colours, which is because their flag has two colours. That's not that odd.
Creative.
They have a big H on their shirt. That's a bit odd, but also sort of cool.
Yeah, talking about kits, as a little digression before we get into the final couple of squads, FIFA have demanded that everyone has these monotone kits because apparently HD cameras don't like two colours in a kit. So some teams have refused to do this. So Brazil will be wearing Croatia, definitely, with the checkers. But most have gone with this kind of monotone kit. So Honduras, all white. And England will be in all white. Germany will be in all white. I think Italy have got away with some blue shorts. Don't know how they managed to do that. I think France will be in all blue, won't they? Spain will be in all red. Who else? Most Argentina have a very, very pale blue. It's almost all white, even though they have some stripes. So I think it's a little disappointing.
So at Jim Dore asked what our favourite kits were, and I've got extremely strong feelings on this subject. Like, monotone may be the order of the day, but the Ghana Puma kit, with the Puma kits are all like incredibly tightly fitting, and they sort of look a bit odd in some cases, but the Ghana one is super stylish with this lovely brightly coloured African print around the collar and just a little patch of it on the sleeves that's very nice. And I really like the ridiculous ridiculous USA away kit. Have you seen it? The red, white and blue?
I have, yes. It's one of those garish ones you get now and again, but yeah.
But it's garish, but it's oddly understated because it is just bands of colour. Like, I mean, if you're comparing it to their away kit in '94, which was stars and stripes, you know.
No, this one looks like a cocktail.
It does. That's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, but not in that horrendous Barcelona tequila sunrise style.
So what's your favourite of the kits?
I think I like the classy ones, to be honest. I like the Germany kit. I think that's nice, just with the kind of band across, white with the band. Not a classic Germany kit at all. I think Spain's red will look very nice, even though it's not a classic Spain kit. England are going to look pretty good in white, if they play in white. I actually presume they will. And so I mean, Mexico, they went a bit rogue, didn't they? Because they've got some swirly shit going on there, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's a bit mental. There is a lot going on in that Mexico kit.
Portugal, we had this whole thing about the kits have to look good on HD TV. I think you're going to want a high refresh rate on your TV for Portugal. Otherwise, you're going to it's going to cause some epilepsy problems.
That is some stripy business. I mean, obviously Brazil's home kits are almost always great, but this one is particularly great. It kind of in shape, it's a bit like our away kit last season, that sort of slightly dentist assistant, dental hygienist look to it around the collar, but it just works spot on, and I definitely have a soft spot for the Honduras kit with the big H on the chest.
Yeah, hopefully there's no helicopters in distress while they're playing.
Absolutely,
could be a problem.
Wilson Palacios is going to get a helicopter landing on him.
He'd take it. He's hard.
He is. All right, Ed, tell us about the next group.
Well, Group F. Well, this is interesting because there's a clear favourite, Argentina, and then three sides that it's hard to pick between. So Argentina, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. Let's not forget them. Iran and Nigeria. 5-team group. Outrageous.
Yeah, it's like when the USA had to play Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, just cheating it was. Anyway, Argentina, so Sabella has got a very, very good side this time out. I mean, it's been a long time since Argentina had a really good team, and I think the amount of attacking talent that Argentina have at their disposal now, this has got to be the opportunity when they go far in the tournament. Messi, Lavezzi, Higuain, Aguero, they left Carlos Tevez out. Oh, poor old kettle juggler didn't get a game. I mean, although to be fair, he's not played for them in quite a while now. Was brought back into the Copa America side, but only really from public pressure. The question really is, can they build a team around Messi? He will not be playing in the false nine position that he does for Barcelona. They will not be playing. They're not revolving their team around Messi, which is controversial, but they're trying to make more of a team ethic. So it's likely Messi and Aguero will be a bit deeper and Higuain will lead the line. It's kind of a 4-3-3. Kind of, but not in the same way that you might play in Europe. And in Mascherano, Gago and Di Maria, they've got an excellent basis for a solid central midfield there. They won't play with any width. Really, they're going to be very, very tight in midfield. I think they will be difficult to beat. Sounds like a cliche, but I think that's true. And I think they'll rely on some real high quality up front to win games for them. They could go a long way. Are they going to get it to knit together? Because they haven't always, but they were pretty good in qualifying. They topped the South American qualification. No Brazil there, of course. A weak link, I think Romero, the Monaco goalkeeper. I have to say, whenever I've seen him, I've not been massively impressed. I think he's prone to a mistake. I think he doesn't focus. And focusing the keeper is really important, as we know. That could be a problem. But Sabella's been there forever. I mean, he was Passarella's assistant for years and years and years. He's got a very tight-knit community. Part of the reason why Tevez wasn't in there. I think he has a very good team. And I think that's going to take them some distance. What are your thoughts? Can they get the best out of Messi?
I mean, I really hope so, because this World Cup is going to be defined by Argentina if they do well, isn't it? Because the idea of Messi winning the World Cup in Brazil, I mean, there are a few brilliant narratives that could potentially happen in terms of winners. One would be Spain winning for the incredible feat that would be. The other would be for Brazil to win on home soil. I mean, that would be spectacular, obviously. And the third one is definitely that Argentina, that Messi wins the World Cup in Brazil. The fierce rivalry between the two countries. It looks to me like this is, as you say, like the keeper might be a weak spot, but generally speaking, this squad's got a bit of everything, right? There's not too much lacking. And they're not managed by Maradona this time. They've got a proper coach. They qualified really strongly. The draw is not unfavourable so long as they win the group. But we could, I mean, I say it's not unfavourable. It's an all right group. But the next set of games is going to be potentially... Have I got my maths wrong? No, I've got my maths wrong. Ignore me. I was thinking they were going to play someone from Group G, but they're not, are they? They're playing someone from Group E, which means that maybe they could be playing against, say, Switzerland in the second round, if everything goes as we think it will, and that's pretty favourable, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, the one thought I have about them is they lack pace at the back. So in Garay and Fernandez, the Napoli centre back, is a very, very good player. I think he's, I think he'll complement Garay well, but there's no pace there. And then Zabaleta and probably Rojo as their two full-backs. So they switch around a bit. So there's some questions there. Can they get best out of their squad players? So a couple of years ago, everyone thought Evan Banega was on the cusp of joining one of the bigger sides. His career's gone south. He had a lot of personal problems. He's gone back to Argentina. He's back with Newell's now. So didn't make it big in Europe. And can they get the best out of Di Maria? He probably won't play in a kind of wide role. He'll probably play a lot more central, kind of as he did in some games for Real Madrid last season. Mascherano will almost certainly play midfield, not at the back like he does for Barcelona. So I think there's a lot of questions around the non-first 11 for Argentina. Can they find the right blend? And there's there's more question marks about that than I think there are for some of the other top teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, of the rest, and this is going to be really tight for second place, I have to say I don't think I can call it. Bosnia and Herzegovina, managed by Safet Sucic, who you may remember from the 80s and 90s, a very, very fine midfielder for Paris Saint-Germain, amongst others, was actually voted the PSG's greatest import of all time a few years back. I think they might have a few better now.
Yeah, pre-Zlatan.
Yeah, that's right. Question from Twitter. Will Zlatan win player of the tournament? He already has.
Yes.
They've got some really good players, right? So Edin Dzeko, everyone will know, will lead their line. Miralem Pjanic. A lot of people are very excited about thoughts of him potentially joining United. He's going to add a lot of creativity. I think their problem is that they've played this kind of diamond in midfield through qualification, and in some of the friendlies they've kind of been found out by that. So I wonder whether they have a plan B or not. They play this very narrow formation, packed it with a lot of creative players, of which they have lots through the squad, and managed to score enough goals that way. World Cup might need a plan B. I think that's going to be a big weakness for them. Very thin squad. Outside the first 11, it really does drop off. And in fact, I think the coach, Sucic, has admitted that he's pretty sure of what his first 13, 14 players are. After that, a bit of a problem. But they've got a good spine. A very good spine through the team. I don't think they're going to be easy to beat by any means. I think they'll set up in a way that is probably looks like a 4-4-2, or probably they can morph that into a 4-2-3-1. So as I said, they've got a lot of kind of creative players who will be able to play in different positions. So Dzeko will lead the line, whatever. Ibisevic and Misimovic will sort of play around him. So will Pjanic, and I think they'll do all right. I can't call how this is going to go though, because I think this is going to be a very tight group with Nigeria and Iran also in there.
All right, so earlier on I said that I thought Cameroon might be the weakest of the African sides. How do Nigeria stack up?
You can't call them weak. They've got Shola Amiobi. So,
he's left Newcastle.
And Victor Moses.
Shola Amiobi has left Newcastle United. I'm really concerned that he's not going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the first time I've ever heard you say Shola Amiobi without a Newcastle accent either.
Shola Amiobi.
Victor Moses, who had a pretty poor season, he will play. Odemwingie fell out with the coach. Stefan Kishi looks like he's back in favour. Actually played in a friendly the other night, so he's in the squad, but hasn't always been. Emmanuel Imaniki will probably lead the line. He's a good player, actually. I think probably their best player is actually in goal. So Vincent Enyama, I think he's one of the maybe top 10 keepers in Europe. He's a very, very strong keeper. Been around. He started playing when he was about 7. So he's got bags and bags of experience. And, this is a team that won the 2013 Africa Cup of Nations. They're a good team. They will probably not play in the way that you expect them to, though. So I think they're probably going to set up in what looks like a kind of 4-3-3, but with John Obi Mikel in more of an attacking role than the defensive role he gets at Chelsea, which might surprise a few people. But of course, that's where he started. So when he was a United player, he was a number 10. Not that he ever played for United, but he was a United player at one stage. Is that an odd fact?
Absolutely.
So United made a £12 million profit on his very dodgy 20 days with the club. So lots of question marks around this team. How does their back four make up? I think in Omero and Obabona, probably their back, two central defenders, probably. Enyama, very good keeper, as I said. Through midfield, probably going to play with Mikel in an attacking position. Do they get Ogu in there and Anazi, another couple of kind of creative players there? I think the question mark is whether they can translate some of the kind of efficiency of their 2013 Africa Cup of Nations win, because I don't think they were a beautifully attacking side or anything like that, into a bigger stage. There's lots of question marks about this team. Are they good enough to qualify? Possibly.
I mean, it's always really interesting to me, like the relationship between success at the Africa Cup of Nations and the World Cup. There's a real lack of correlation, isn't there, between the African sides that do well at the World Cups and those that have recently won Africa Cup of Nations. So it's going to be interesting to see if they break that trend. They've definitely got a group they can get out of, though, haven't they?
They've got a group they can get out of. The interesting thing is, I think some of the better players are not playing at the big European clubs, So there's been times in the history of Nigerian football when they've had some kind of big names, and I'm not sure that they do right now. And, as we saw a year ago, they've got a good collective, though, haven't they? There's definitely quality in this team. I think they could potentially qualify, but it's really tight. Those games between Bosnia, Nigeria and Iran, it's going to be really hard to call. And one of the reasons it's hard to call is because Iran are a very good side. Not perhaps what people expect, but they qualified very well. I mean, they out-qualified South Korea, for example, in Asia, went to Korea having to get a result and got a result a couple of games before the end of the tournament. In Carlos Queiroz, they have a coach of vast experience. Obviously, we know him from United time. He's going to play exactly how you expect a Carlos Queiroz side to play. They're going to play 4-5-1, 4-3-3. They've got some very high quality players in that squad too. I think Nekunam, the captain, is kind of a really creative player. I think you'll like a lot of what you see from him. Sojai, also Spanish-based, another midfielder. Ansa Farid is going to score the goals. He scored quite a few, quite a young player. De Jager, you'll have seen at Fulham, had an excellent second half of the season, didn't he? So they've got some good players, got a lot of creativity. They're a good unit together. Queiroz he's getting really rave reviews. He hasn't fallen out with the management. Not all of those classic things. They're one real problem, and it is a massive problem. They're going to go into the tournament undercooked because they spent 3 months after qualifying without a game for a start. And then when they have had some games, they're playing some really poor quality opposition. It's because none of the top sides will play them because of economic sanctions, and it's hit them really hard. And so they're going to go in having played no one of any quality whatsoever.
Andy Mitten put out a really brilliant episode of the United We Stand podcast because he went to Iran to interview Queiroz for 442 and just talked to a load of Iranians about football in Iran and the national team and what they thought of Queiroz, and they all seemed to love him. And it was absolutely fascinating to hear because they are in unique spot in world football, aren't they? They're the only side at this World Cup who are properly, on the outs with the rest of the international community, aren't they?
Well, they are, and they have a lot of home-based players. I mean, but this is a football country, right? They love football in Iran.
Absolutely.
They often get domestic games with over 100,000 people at the games. This is a football-mad country. It's really important to them. Qualification was celebrated wildly, and they've got some good players. I don't think there is a lot between this side and Nigeria and Bosnia. I think Bosnia have the thinner squad of the three, but maybe the best first 11 of the three that are not leading the group. Nigeria, they have a good side and a good squad, and Iran, we'll see. They've possibly got the best creative players of that set of three. I think it's all going to come down to the details.
Perhaps not the best creative players of the group as a whole, given
no of the three that are playing for
absolutely.
second place, and it's an assumption they're playing for second place.
I think one of the things about this group, from what you've said, is first of all, I'm now incredibly excited about watching all these games, but also it sounds like it's pretty much the perfect level of opponent for Argentina, because they're not going to go into the following round undercooked, but also they're going to have too much quality, but they're going to get a good sort of, it's a good ramp up, isn't it?
It's a good ramp up for Argentina. They're also playing a lot of games close to their base, so they're playing all their games in the south of Brazil, so it's not going to be hot. They don't have to do much travelling. They've got three decent sides they're playing, but not super quality. I think they're going to build, and that's good for Argentina. It's perhaps not good for their opponents, but let's just make the assumption Argentina win all their three games, and so the really fascinating games in this group are the ones between Nigeria, Iran and Bosnia.
Absolutely. So hit me up with some fun facts, Ed.
Well, I gave you one about Iran. So it's over a year since they qualified. That's the other thing about the Asian qualification. And they didn't play a game for 119 days after that. And then after that, they've played some absolute dross. Absolute dross. So there you go. Bosnia, they played their first game as the national team in 1993 against Iran in Tehran. Funnily enough, I don't know if that's a fun fact, but it's an interesting fact.
It literally made me go,
there you go. There's two high quality fun facts for you.
It's good. All right, Group G. G is for Germany, Ghana, Portugal, and the USA. Gee whiz, I can't work out how to fit them into this riff. Germany are obviously the standout side in this group.
9!
Portugal and Ghana pose pretty significant threat, I'd say. And the USA have got fine record in recent tournaments, but I was talking to Josh at Amplified to Rock on his podcast the other day, and he was saying he doesn't think it's a vintage crop of the US.
Splitter. It's not.
They've obviously got an incredibly tough draw, so I think it's probably fair to write the US off. But Germany, do you, Ed, do you A, write off the Germans, or B, not write off the Germans?
I remember what Fantasy Football League, Badil and Skinner wrote about the Germans. Check that one on YouTube. That's what I think about the Germans. No, I'm kidding. I think they've got a very good side, Germany. I like watching them play. I think they've evolved into a very fine attacking unit. Bags and bags of talent all through their squad. They've got to be one of the favourites for the tournament.
Absolutely, but how they must wish this tournament was in Europe, because in 2012 they looked to me like a team on the verge of greatness. I spent the whole European Championships thinking, my goodness, they're going to really wish the 2014 World Cup was in Europe, because I think if it was, then maybe Spain would still be the favourites, but if not, Germany would be running them extremely close.
They're playing their games in Fortaleza, Recife and Salvador, so it's that's a tough geographical location, and I think they're also up in that part of the country for the next round as well.
So what's the implications of that? Is that like further north gets hotter, all that sort of thing?
Yeah, further north is hotter, it's all south of the equator. I mean, they're playing in the Brazilian winter, but it's tropical once you get towards the north, and the implications are that they play whoever comes out of Group F, which is Belgium, Algeria, Russia, and Korea.
Yeah. So still coached by Jogi Löw. He's been the coach of the national side since 2006, and before that he was assistant to Klinsmann from 2004 to 2006. But that's just a really long time in international football terms, isn't it?
Really long time with exactly the same haircut. It's never changed. It is a bowl cut.
The same shirt, the same everything. He's built the definitive high-pressing technical 4-2-3-1, right? It's less reliant on possession than Spain, possessed and more power. But, like, key players, right? Each of these teams broke out the key players. Looking at Germany's squad, basically they're in pretty much their entire first 11. I've left a couple of people out, but Neuer, Lahm, Schweinsteiger, Kroos, Müller, Özil, Reus, Goetze. I mean, what?
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. You could say that maybe they've got a few issues at centre-half. Like, for some reason, Hummels hasn't replicated his Dortmund form for Germany. They play Mertesacker, still plays a lot, and he's like technically like a good defender, but you know, we'll know what Mertesacker's weaknesses are.
Built like a tank, turns like one. Yeah, and he'll play with Boateng, who I don't think is a great defender. I mean, I think Hummels is an outstanding player, but you're right, he's been in and out of the Germany side, and you know, I wonder whether they'll find a way to get him in there. He's got the tournament experience, he's got the big game experience. He's a higher quality defender than the other two.
Yeah, absolutely. United connections, all of them, right?
Ron Robert Zieler.
Yeah, okay, so actual United real life connections. Ron Robert Zieler is their third choice keeper, probably, and he was a youth teamer at United. Didn't quite make the grade, went back home to Germany. But by the end of, I reckon, not this transfer window, but the end of the summer transfer window 2015, there will not be a single player in this Germany squad that United have not been linked to at some point.
Maybe not some of the Bayern lads, although we seem to be doing a good job of getting linked with them too. Yeah,
we'll be linked to them in unrealistic fashion. It's reached a point where I actually saw someone say on Twitter the Schweinsteiger to United seems a bit more realistic than some of the transfers we've been discussing.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. So the interesting thing about Germany is they're probably going to do a Spain and play with Mario Götze up front, right, as a false nine. And interesting because he's a very technical player. He can play with the ball in front of him, definitely. You know, he's a player who can play like that, but they've gone with the squad with one striker, and he's like 900 and something in Klose.
I mean, yeah, and of course, Klose is a big World Cup for him because he could break the record, couldn't he, on Ronaldo's home turf. But he has to be able to walk to be able to score goals, so we'll see.
Well, they invented the Zimmer frame in Germany. That's what it's for.
Podolski is sort of a striker sometimes as well, isn't he? He certainly played up front with Klose quite a lot.
Thomas Muller. I mean, they're going to be Spain, right? They're going to play with like 17 midfielders and try and dominate possession. But I think your analysis at the beginning about how Germany play is right. It's not all about possession. They most definitely do play with some pace, and they've got lots and lots of pace in all those creative players. I think they're a really, really good side.
Yeah, I think that it is more likely that Spain will win the World Cup than Germany. But I don't quite know what I'm basing that on. It's some sort of instinct. But then you think like maybe they lack a little bit for pace in the centre of the park, but I don't think pace is going to be the standout factor at this World Cup, really. Especially not the games played in the tropical conditions, you know.
Well, making the assumption they play with Schweinsteiger and Kroos in the central midfield, I think that's probably how they'll start the tournament. Say they start the opening game with, say, Müller, Özil, Reus and Goetze. There's just tons of pace there.
Yeah, you're right.
There's pace all over the place.
Absolutely.
In attacking, and then they'll just try and control midfield. What they don't have is a player who might break ahead of the ball. Maybe Schweinsteiger will. Of course, Kroos can play as a number 10. He probably won't in this Germany side unless they switch him out with Özil, which they could do, and Özil could play wide or not play at all. Or Lahm could play in a holding role, as we've seen him do for Bayern frequently, and Kroos could play further forward, as he's done for Bayern frequently too.
I mean, it's interesting. You wonder how much Löw's been watching Pep at Bayern and how much that's going to have an influence. I suspect Lahm's just going to play fullback all the way through the tournament. I don't know why. I just think, you know, it's that Löw's been playing with that group of players for a really long time, knows them really well, and you'd think...
But they have an option, right?
No, they do.
Because they've got Grosskreutz, who's an outstanding fullback in his own right.
Yeah.
So... they definitely have options there. I mean, in fullback, they're well, you know, Schmelzer on the other side, they're well served, I think.
Absolutely. So odd fact about Germany, and it's only really because it's Germany that you could say this was an odd fact, but they haven't won a major international tournament since 1996. It is starting to get on a bit, isn't it? It's like, we're starting to be at the outside edges of how long it is between Germany winning international tournaments, and I think the next Euros is probably their time, right? This generation is just slightly on the wrong cycle, isn't it? It's just, you might think this would be the peak years of this generation, and the World Cup in Brazil is going to be a huge ask for them.
Well, yes, but in 2 years' time, I think you're right. They've actually got quite a young squad, right?
Yeah, so, absolutely. Still,
there's very few players, apart from Klose. They'll have very few players that will drop out of the squad in 2 years' time for age reasons. If they could find a striker, if they could find a really good quality striker, that'd make a big difference. But I think you're right. I think it's in the wrong location for them, and they'll probably come up just a little bit short. But my bet's on the semi-final for Germany. What are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And I think when we come to Belgium's Group H, which is who they'll be playing, assuming Belgium can win that group and assuming Germany win their group, then you'd think passage to the quarterfinal is likely. But there are things standing in the way of Germany winning their group, and those things are mostly Cristiano Ronaldo. Portugal, or Cristiano Ronaldo and 10 other blokes, as they're known in both real life and definitely in Cristiano Ronaldo's head. Coached by Paulo Bento, took over from the disastrous reign of Carlos Queiroz, popular in Iran but not so popular in Portugal.
You can't say that very often, can you?
No, you can't. Used to manage Sporting Lisbon, lined Portugal up in a 4-3-2-1. A 4-3-2 and Ronaldo formation. It's a 4-3-3, really. They struggled in qualifying. They really did struggle in qualifying, but Bento's had just agreed a contract extension to the end of the next Euro, so they're obviously not blaming him for that. Their playoff with Sweden was just a fantastic game, the second leg, which was... It was billed as Zlatan versus Ronaldo, and it really was Zlatan versus Ronaldo in a way that doesn't normally happen. I mean, the key players list, we could talk about some other players, but it really is Ronaldo. They do have other good talents, but without Ronaldo, they are an infinitely worse side. So maybe you could mention João Moutinho, who's instrumental in their relative success in Euro 2012 and in that playoff. William Carvalho, some United interest there as he's been frequently linked with us. He looks a fine holding midfielder. Nani, he actually had a pretty good game in the friendly against Greece that Portugal just had, so it'll be interesting to see how much he plays. And normally, he'd play on one side of the 4-3-3. You've got Helder Postiga still leading the line for Portugal. Why talk about a team that need a centre forward? Portugal have needed a centre forward since Eusebio, basically.
I mean, it's not far off it, is it? I mean, remarkable how many tournaments they've gone into and everyone's going, if only they had a centre forward, they'd be half decent. So what do you think of Carvalho then? Is he going to start this tournament? Is he going to stick another 5 million euros on his transfer fee?
I don't know. It's really difficult, and I think it really depends on... Because I think, for a defensive midfielder, in a way... A World Cup is not the ideal scenario to showcase your skills, is it? Because...
Oh, unless you're Nicky Butt.
Yeah, of course. He was brilliant. I maintain he was brilliant in that World Cup. But, for a defensive midfielder, your real benefit comes over the course of a long season, right? You do a lot of little things right all the time, and it adds up to a big contribution over time. But, if he can stifle some of those German midfield talents in the group stages, and maybe if they play Belgium in the second round and he has a good game, then he could do. There's a lot of United connections in this side. Nani's going to play for the national side, and United eyes will be looking to see whether Van Gaal will keep him around. In theory, he's a very Van Gaal player, right? If good Nani would be perfect in a Van Gaal system.
Yes, we just haven't had good Nani for at least 2 years. So it gets to the point that that's just theoretical rather than practical.
Yeah, someone whose connection with United is now entirely theoretical, in spite of people never stopping going on about him. Some lad called Cristiano used to play for us, apparently, although used to play for us is the operative.
He scored 49 goals in 110 internationals. Is it? It's a bit rubbish.
It's not very good.
He scores over a goal a game at domestic level.
I think that's slightly because he's in better sides at domestic level. Carvalho, of course, and but for a faulty fax machine, the man who played in the Champions League final helped Real Madrid win their 10th Champions League, but for a faulty fax machine, would have been a United player. I thought Coentrao had a wonderful 2012, and actually, I mean, I know Euro 2012, you said he had a pretty bad season last season at Madrid, but this season he's been pretty good for Madrid, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. I mean, he's shared the role, of course, but he's been pretty good. He'll be going into the tournament actually in decent form. He'll play left back, not in midfield as has happened occasionally, not that occasionally. I don't think he's ever really fulfilled the price tag. He was over 30 million euros when he went to Real Madrid. That's a hell of a lot of money to play for a left back, isn't it? Won't see that happening very often, except maybe this summer at United.
It's just about to happen.
So yeah, a remarkable thing that, isn't it? It just didn't fax it across in time. Is football the only industry that still uses the fax?
It must be on the outs, surely.
Bizarre. It's bizarre.
Talking of facts, these are just the facts. Oddest fact about Portugal is unquestionably Cristiano Ronaldo's eyebrows. In the semi-final, he'd gone too far. By the final, they'd filled out slightly, leading me to wonder whether he deliberately tried to organise his eyebrows so they would be perfect by the time the Champions League final rolled around.
You're saying he overplucked?
I would not put it past it. You look at the pictures from the semi-final, his eyebrows look ridiculous. Also, the other weird fact about Portugal is that they are ranked 3rd in the FIFA World Rankings.
Yeah, that is a failure of the algorithm right there. Yeah, definitely not the 3rd best side in this tournament. You'd expect them to qualify from this group, though?
You would probably expect them to qualify from this group, but they have a capacity to misfire, and if they do misfire, they're going to have trouble with Ghana, I would suspect. African teams have the coolest nicknames, and the Black Stars will come to the World Cup eager to right the wrongs of cheaty Luis Suarez in their defeat to Uruguay in 2010.
He'd never cheat, would he, Luis Suarez? Never.
Akwesi Appiah is the coach, a local coach, which is relatively rare in the African teams. His performance at the last Africa Cup of Nations was not so impressive, but they beat Egypt 6-1 in qualifying, which is obviously huge in African qualifying. Egypt, a traditional powerhouse of African football.
Yeah, absolutely battered them. Yeah, I actually watched that game, which was unusual because I didn't actually. I mean, it's wall-to-wall European football, aren't we, in Europe, funnily enough? So didn't watch an awful lot of the African teams in qualification, although I did watch a lot of the Africa Cup of Nations a year ago.
What I read about that game was that Michael Essien was incredibly dominant and sort of rolled back the years in that game and running up and down and pulling all the strings. Would that be your take?
Yes. It's a very rare occasion when Michael Essien does that anymore, though. I mean, I think he has gone. I mean, at his peak, he was such a brilliant midfielder. I mean, United missed out on him big time, didn't they, when Chelsea outbid United for him all those years ago? Real shame. They've got some good players, Ghana. I mean, I thought they were rubbish when they played Holland recently. Quite a few United fans might have seen that because it was on MUTV, but they were rubbish, and they lumped a load of long balls forward, and they looked really basic. And they were missing quite a few of their big names. Fair enough.
Yeah, and they sort of grew into that game a bit. I thought they looked a bit overawed early on in the defence. I mean, their defence is really going to be problematic for them. And also Jerry Akaminko, he didn't look brilliant, but he is one of their first choice centre-halves, and he went off on a stretcher right at the end of that game. Key players, Michael Essien, Kevin Prince Boateng, who's come back from international retirement in time for the World Cup.
Funny.
Suleiman Tari, Asamoah Gyan.
Yeah, checkbooks, Asamoah Gyan.
Yes.
Is he still raking in the money in the Middle East?
He is, and it's really sad, I think. Well, I mean, it's not sad for him. Obviously, he's perfectly happy, but he's a brilliant player on his day, Asamoah Gyan. He was fantastic for Sunderland. It's kind of a shame. It's funny you mention Essien and United. I put United connection none, but wouldn't it have been nice if Essien had signed for us instead of Chelsea? There is some United connection, actually, because Asamoah Gyan's footballing hero is Eric Cantona. He may have bad taste in club sides, but he's got...
Show me a player whose footballing hero is not Eric Cantona.
And you'll show me a liar. So the USA, a very tough draw for them. Makes it unlikely that they'll build on recent successes because they've been a sort of, pretty much a perennial figure at the World Cup in recent years, haven't they? And we've sort of got to a point where you kind of half expect them to get out of qualifying. But this is a rock-hard group, and it's not a vintage crop.
No, it isn't. Left Donovan at home as well, and which coach. Sorry, I cut you off just as you were going to say Jurgen Klinsmann's the coach, but I assume you saw the tweet from Jurgen Klinsmann's son laughing at that squad announcement.
Well, yeah, although all he did was lol, right? And, kids lolling on Twitter, they're not actually laughing, they're just shocked. But yes, he got in trouble and learned a harsh lesson, apparently, according to Jurgen. So he was the manager of Germany, of course, in 2004, and then the disastrous spell at Bayern Munich. But even when he was managing Germany, he was living in California, and the lifestyle obviously agrees with him because he's been in charge of the USA since 2011, signed up till 2018. Pretty much plays a 4-4-2 with the USA, which he didn't at Germany, but he does with the USA. And Scotland fans will be delighted to note that Bertie Vokes is along for the ride as assistant manager for this World Cup. So key players, Wait, what? Why did he do that? Oh. Well, in that case, Clint Dempsey, Tim Howard, Michael Bradley, who is generally...
Good player?
Yeah, he's essentially the man who's replaced Landon Donovan in the squad. I do think it's kind of an odd decision to take Donovan, and I wonder if it's that he was going to play Bradley ahead of Donovan, and so he decided he just didn't want a kind of superstar sulker kicking about the place.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it feels like a personal decision rather than a footballing one, because he's still good enough to make it into this squad.
The squad, yeah, but definitely not the first team from everything that I've been reading about it. Weaknesses: defense. They have a combination of either not enough experience or too much experience in their back four. They have to beat Ghana in the first game, and I don't think they will. They could, but I think Ghana will cause them problems. If they don't win that game, that means they're going to have to be going for it against Portugal and Germany, and they're just going to get ripped apart in the counter-attack, I suspect. United connections, Tiho plays in goal for them and used to play for us. That's about it. I've got to give a shout out to Kyle Beckerman's beard and dreadlocks combination, bringing back fond memories of Alexi Lalas, and also, as previously mentioned, I'm a big fan of their away kit. But it is red, white and blue, which I think means there's a colour clash with every other team in the tournament except, like, Ivory Coast.
Yeah, we probably won't ever see it. Yeah, Nigeria and Ivory Coast, it might be okay, but yeah, they haven't followed FIFA's directive, but they are the USA, so they can do whatever the hell they like.
Yeah.
And could they bomb FIFA? Actually, a lot of people would advocate that. Is FIFA a country? Do they have any oil?
It's more powerful.
Let's put the rumour out there. It might happen. Kyle Beckerman looks like he's in a Roots band from, the deepest south, doesn't he? Classic stuff.
Absolutely, I like it. I'm fond of that look. I mean, a lot of people mock the white man dread look, but when it gets pulled off like that, I don't think you can disrespect it. He's got a very strong hair and beard game. I think that Germany and Portugal are going to qualify from that group in that order. Not particularly going out on a limb to say that.
I think you're right. I think they will. I think there's a gap between those two and the rest of the quality in that group. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I think Germany will win that group. I think they'll beat Portugal in that game. I think they will win all three, and they'll end up playing second place in Group F, which is not a strong group.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I think that too, but you can't assume that a team with Cristiano Ronaldo in it's going to lose, can you? It's like it is just such a massive X factor for Portugal that if Ronaldo's really on his game, he becomes unstoppable.
Yeah, but he's one man in 11, and that Portugal side hasn't always leverage that in the right way.
No, absolutely. So, Group H.
So, yeah, finally we're into Group H. 2.5 hours of recording here. Sorry, everyone listening. And
I hope you haven't listened to this in one go, folks. If you have, give us a message. Drop us a message. Tell us how you're doing at this stage.
Yeah, maybe you could raise money for charity or something like that. So, this is the group of Adnan, Janu, Jazz Hands, Jam, or whatever he was called. Well, hey, I did say earlier in the season that if he got a World Cup call-up, he would convert to not. I was going to say a religion then. I'm not quite sure. Good as though this Belgian side is, that they are a religion just yet, but they might be after this. And I think they're so good, this Belgium side, that they are not dark horses. They're actually legitimately a good side. Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think the best of their players are phenomenal, and they don't have that many weaknesses. But if they won the World Cup, it'd be a minor miracle.
Yes, it would be a massive shock. So where they're good is in attacking scenarios. So Lukaku and Hazard and Dembele and De Bruyne will be supported by Chadli. Probably had a really good season at Tottenham. Witsel will probably anchor the midfield. Fellaini might play, although I don't think it's obvious that he'll start. I think they'll actually play with one holding player there, given the quality of the group. So maybe they'll bring on Fellaini later, who does play in this kind of box-to-box role. Mark Wilmots the manager's been moaning that United didn't use him in the right way. It's at the back that's the question for me, because they've got players who are great on paper. So Kompany, outstanding, obviously, and then probably joined by Vertonghen, Van Aalen and Alderweireld from Atletico Madrid. So, 3 excellent players there. Have they really produced excellent form this season? Not sure about that. And in Courtois, they've obviously got one of the world's great keepers, a young keeper, but outstanding already. There's no doubt about his quality. So, 1 to 11, very, very good. Problems, no Christian Benteke, snapped his Achilles. And that is a problem because they had used him as a kind of target man. And Lukaku is not a target man. As good as he is, pacey as he is, he likes the ball in front of him. That's changing the way they're going to play. They're going to have to get Hazard closer to him in order for the tactics to work. That's going to stretch them through midfield. And so there's some question marks for Wilmots to work out there. Outside of the first 11, I think they have some issues, So Stefan Defour didn't make the most of his career. He's in the squad. Fellaini's in the squad. Don't think he's very good. Dries Martins, don't think so. Kevin Morales will probably play up front. I didn't mention him earlier in one of their kind of wider areas, or at least he'll swap. Batshuayi, did he make the squad? I actually can't remember now. Standard Liège forward will probably be back up, but they're going to hope that Lukaku stays fit entirely, because a lot of this is on him now. That said, this is the best Belgium side since 1986, no doubt about it.
And it's probably, we're yet to see, but it's certainly on paper stronger, has more quality in more different areas than any Belgium side ever. You didn't even mention Januzaj. You mentioned Morales, and I nearly went boo, boo, Kevin Morales, boo.
who said that Januzaj shouldn't make the squad? So Wilmot said that Januzaj is along for the experience, and he'll be watching from the bench. I mean, he basically came out and said that, right? So either you take that at face value and say that Januzaj is unlikely to play, or it's the ace that he's going to pull out, and Januzaj is going to play. And, the thing is, I think actually Benteke getting injured increases the chances of Januzaj playing. And the reason for that is that Lukaku is not going to hold the ball up in the same way. They're going to have to get players closer to him. And I think Januzaj is more comfortable playing that kind of whole floaty role around the main forward than Morales is. So there's an increased chance of him playing just tactically. We'll see. He's a kid. He hasn't been part of the qualification process. He's an outsider. Didn't have a great second half of the season with United, really, but we know how much talent he's got. Massive amount of talent. It'd be silly not to use him at some point.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, he might not have had a great second half of the season, but when he was played, he mostly did. Like, especially right at the end of the season, that whole game, he was absolutely electric. And he is the kind of player that could make a real dent on a World Cup, because he's completely fearless. So he's going to come on and just be like, oh yeah, I'm Adnan Januzaj. This is what I do. I play in front of 75,000 people every week, when he plays. He's had a lot of experience in a very short time. Maybe, like, not necessarily in minutes played, a lot of experience, but been around champions and all that kind of stuff. And I just think, if you keep him on the bench and you're chasing a game or something like that, and you're not thinking about unleashing Januzaj, it means you haven't watched him enough, because he's ready as far as I'm concerned.
Right, I said at the start of the season I wasn't sure he was ready, and then he proved me completely wrong. So yeah, why not? He's certainly got the quality. Other factors in Belgium's favour: they play all their games in the south of the country. They're located in Sao Paulo. Their longest trip is about half an hour in a plane, logistically, which will be a problem at this World Cup. We haven't really talked about it, although I've kind of hinted at it. I think they're in sound order. I think they'll get out of this group. I think they'll win the group. I think they'll win all 3 games, actually. So, not that I think they're going to go win the World Cup or they're as good as the other top sides, but I think they're lucky. They're in a fortunate position. They've got a very good core of players, lots of attacking talent, and not a very good group. So alongside them is Russia, and this is not a good Russia side. This is a Russia side with quite a lot of over 30s. And, with all the travel and some of the heat, again, they play all their games in the south. That might be a problem for them. I think they were very, very disappointing a couple of years ago, weren't they, in the Euros? I don't see much quality in this squad at all. Their real creating heart is Begoyev, who is the one creative player in midfield for them. Up front, they've got problems. Kershikov was terrible at the Euros. They've got this guy called Kokorin, who's the Dynamo Moscow forward. I don't know whether you've seen much of him, but I like the look of him a lot. I think that Capello looks like he wants to build a side round his attacking talents. He's a better option than Kershikov for me. But this is a problem throughout the Russian side. It's not necessarily certain who plays in each position. They will probably play with a typical sort of Capello 4-1-4-1, quite defensive in mentality. They've got a lot of older players. I don't think they're very dynamic. I think basically their strength is at the back and in defence. I think they will be solid. Obviously in Akinfeev, they've got a very, very good goalkeeper. We know a lot about him, seen him a few times. I think they'll look to keep it very, very tight. Hope they'll be thinking, well, we can beat Algeria and Korea, again, 2 other not very good teams, and let's try and nick something against Belgium.
Yeah, absolutely. Or qualify second and probably lose to Germany in the second round. I think pick of the second round ties, assuming Spain and Brazil avoid each other, could be Portugal against Belgium, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could be. That could be a very, very good second round tie indeed. And I think let's assume that it's going to work out that way. But I think it's not guaranteed that Russia get out of this group, even though the other 2 are not very good. So, we take Algeria, the Fennec Foxes. They've, for a country that has had civil war and economic problems and tribal strife, they've built a decent side and they've qualified, right? So it sounds patronising. It's not meant to be. It's just this is a side built from some adversity. They've also been very smart. So they've picked local based players, but they've also managed to extract quite a lot of players from France and the kind of immigrant community in France as well. So players that haven't made it into the French side, they've got quite a few. A lot of their players, in fact, didn't even start football in Algeria. But it's an international side as a result. In Rafik Halitche, the defender from Academia, they have a Luis Suarez lookalike, spitting image. It could be the same man. Have you ever seen the 2 of them in a room together?
I've never seen one of them ever.
Yeah, there you go. So this is a side that qualified well from Africa. This is that's as good enough as it is. They've got some good talent. I like Bentaleb, the Tottenham player. I think Sofiane Feghouli, the Valencia midfielder, is excellent creative player. Really, really good this season in a good Valencia side. So I think they'll be relying on him a lot for the creative part of their game. Up front, Slimani is probably going to start, but they've got as their top goal scorer 10 goals. So this is where the problem is for them. They don't score a lot of goals. They haven't got a lot of experience in their forward areas. Probably not a lot of quality either, if I'm honest. I think they'll play quite a defensive-looking side, probably a sort of variant on 4-5-1, 4-3-2-1. Slimani will lead the line on his own, and they'll look to break. And it will be in the details as to whether they get out this group or not. I don't expect they will.
No, absolutely. So do you expect that South Korea will get out of the group?
Well, the thing is, no, I don't. They were dreadful in qualification. It led to the disappearance of their old coach and Korean legend Hong Myung-bo is now the coach. You will remember him from World Cups of past. He played at every World Cup match that South Korea had between 1990 and 2002. There you go. That's a fun fact. He is a legend. He's He's coached by popular demand, but this is not a great South Korean side. They will almost certainly try and play on the break. They do have some decent midfielders, Ki Young-sung Jung, Park Jung-woo, Lee Chung-young, but their real problem is up front. In their principal striker is Arsenal reserve Park Chu-young, who can't score for love and definitely not any money. Funnily, when he came to Arsenal, everyone was excited. Well, at least Gooners were excited about him. He'd scored about 3 goals in 300 games for Monaco prior to that. They have a problem scoring goals. I don't expect they're going to score many in these games either. I don't think they'll go through. Whether they come third or fourth is dependent on that game against Algeria.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's going to be fascinating to see. One last time I'm going to ask you this, Ed. It's been an absolutely epic podcast. Tell me you've got some fun facts left.
I've given you fun facts. I've given you fun facts. 2 fun facts there. Hong Myung-bo played every single game in World Cups for Korea between 1990 and 2012. Legend.
That's a good fact.
Good fact.
Good fact.
I gave you another
Good fact.
Algeria are called the Fennec Foxes. Do you know why?
Oh, no.
No, neither do I.
I think the Fennec Foxes are desert foxes. That's what I think it is.
That's exactly why.
That's off the top of my head. Straight off the top of my dome.
Belgium are called the Red Devils.
Yeah, so we should all want them to win, right? Don't know about you, but I've fallen into a pit of World Cup-based delirium, having been extremely excited about the World Cup when we started recording. Now I just want it to be all over. Before we go, listeners, you've done an incredible job sticking with us. I hope you found it of some value. I hope you feel like you kind of, it's like a bit of an audio, one of them pull-out guides in a newspaper, but in audio form. And I hope you feel like you're going into the World Cup with some players that you weren't necessarily looking out for before that you're looking out for now. A bit more of an understanding of how all these teams are looking likely to match up. And it does sound like there's some very cool games lined up in the group stages that are not necessarily between the super obvious teams, so very excited about that. Before we go, in Grand Rantcast edition, let's do some predictions. No, we're not going to predict every game between now and next time we record, because then we'll be here for another 3 hours. But we would like to, I'd like to do a few predictions. So first of all, give us your dark horse then, Ed. Give us your outsider for the tournament that you think's got a genuine chance of like a semi-final place or something.
Yeah, well, Belgium. So I began that segment by saying they're too good to be a dark horse. I'm going to revise it. They're a dark horse because they've got no chance of winning it. So Belgium are definitely an outside chance. I'd have said Bosnia because they qualified really well, but I think their squad's too thin, and I think that's going to count in tournament football. I'd be surprised if they go that far. The top teams for me are Brazil, Spain, Germany, and Argentina, and Belgium are the fifth one there. Maybe Italy, but I'm not sure. And then France, yeah, maybe.
France are my pick as a dark horse, just because I think they've got so much talent in that squad that they could come together and produce something a bit more special than people are expecting. All right, out of those 4 top teams, who are you going for the win?
I think Brazil are going to win it, and I think they're going to win it because they're the least flawed of the very top teams, and that makes it kind of sound a bit negative. I actually think them and Spain and Germany are all outstanding teams, and Holland. We didn't even mention Holland.
I don't think Holland are in that category this time around, though, are they?
No, I agree with you. I don't think they are. So I think Brazil are going to win it, and because they've got all the attacking talent, they've got a very good balance to their squad. They've got a very smart manager in Scolari, and they're at home.
I think that's all very good reasons. For purely sentimental reasons, I'm picking a Spain win. I would absolutely love to see it. Just the part of me that really loves to see sporting excellence. But as I said earlier, I'll be delighted to see either Brazil, Spain, or Argentina win this. But my little slight heart overhead pick for the winner is going to be Spain to pull off something truly miraculous. Top goal scorers. It'll be a pretty much a miracle if the top goal scorer comes from Spain. In the 2010 World Cup, I believe I predicted that Karim Benzema would be the Golden Boot winner. That was not the thing which happened. I'm slightly tempted to pick him again, but the key to Golden Boot is you want someone that's likely to get a hat-trick in the group stages. And I reckon Neymar could put a few past Australia, so he's a pretty good shout. But And Argentina, I was going to back Messi, but from what you said about Argentina's group, it doesn't sound like there's anyone there they're going to give a tonk into.
No, I don't think so. I think that's going to be pretty tight. So, yeah, I mean, you're right. The top goal scorer is normally someone who bags a hat-trick and then a couple of others. Although, Neymar is going to be the bigger goal scorer than, say, Fred for Brazil. You could look at some of the Argentinians, Messi, Aguero, Higuain, could all score plenty of goals too. Cristiano Ronaldo?
Yeah, but Portugal's group games, I don't see him putting... Well, hat-trick against the USA. It's possible. Maybe Müller. Maybe Wayne Rooney, lol. Danny Welbeck! Danny Welbeck.
Yeah.
Danny Welbeck.
He is that guy. I mean, obviously, he's the player of the tournament. Just behind Zlatan.
Yeah. No, shut up. That sounds like you're being sarcastic. Unacceptable. No, I really, really, really hope Danny gets a few goals in this one. Who do you think is going to be like the standout player of the tournament then? Who do you think we're all going to be talking about?
I think we're going to be talking about Neymar's World Cup. Is what I think. I know that's an obvious pick, but I think...
No, it's a great one. I'd love to see that. I think it would be so romantic in a way.
Yeah. So I know it's interesting. He's actually had a very good season for Barcelona in what has been a very difficult season relative to Barcelona's recent years. And all the controversy about the money and so on was much more of a political dimension than it was for him. I think the interesting thing about for Brazil, although he'll play off the left like he's been playing for Barcelona, is kind of where he's been playing for Brazil, right? Whereas with Barcelona, there was always that tension with, was he going to play through the centre or Messi? Messi was injured for a while. He played through the centre at that point and then got shunted away, and there was a status issue, which was interesting. I don't think there is with Brazil. He's the top man. He's their creative force. He's the one that everyone's hoping will lead them to glory, and I have to say, I think he will.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Oscar is another player that is going to be a lot of talk about after the World Cup. So who do you think is going to flop the hardest at this World Cup then?
Rooney.
Oh, I don't know though. Can a player with such low expectations going into a tournament really be considered a flop?
So I think Luis Suarez is going to bite, kick, handball, nut someone, and he'll be the biggest flop. That's my thought.
What about teams wise, out of the sort of big teams and the second tier of big teams, who do you think is going to have the roughest time?
Yeah, so I think there's definitely an option for Italy and for Holland to flop, if that's the right word, or not progress very far. Holland are in danger, of course, because that opening game against Spain could really derail their options. I don't think Argentina are going to blow up. I think France have got a good chance this time round of doing okay. I mean, the expectations aren't really high. It would be a massive surprise for me if Germany did not do well in this tournament. The geography isn't on their side, but at least it's a Winter World Cup. At least they play their games in the south, and they've got a really outstanding squad.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how far do you think England will go?
I think in quarterfinals a good option for them. I mean, it does kind of depend on how the other group plays out. So they'll be playing the winners of Group C, so potentially Colombia or...
I would not be shocked if any of the four teams, even Greece in Group C, won that group. I mean, it would be a bit of a shock, let's face it. But
right, so you're talking about a quarterfinal, and if it plays out, they play Brazil in the quarterfinal. So that would be a good tournament for England, I think, given the age of this side and the expectations.
Absolutely, and hopefully, if glorious failure against Brazil sounds pretty good. Basically, England are going to more than likely either go out in the group stages or the quarterfinal. It's kind of one or the other, really, isn't it? It's pretty unlikely they'll go out in the second round, but they might do. They are England after all. We are going to be covering in less depth than this, or at least in less length than this, the whole tournament. So the plan is to release this. We don't know yet whether you're listening to one episode or the end part of a second episode. We're going to release this, and then the next Rantcast will be out on the second Friday of the World Cup. So not the day after the World Cup starts, but basically a week into the tournament. We'll be wrapping up the first set of fixtures from the first round. And I was joking about being exhausted earlier, but I'm still incredibly excited about the World Cup. I can't wait. And if you want to get hold of me or Ed during the tournament, you can get us on Twitter. I'm at UTD Rantcast, Ed's at United Rant. You can get us both at facebook.com/United Rant and read all the coverage of the goings on at Manchester United at unitedrant.co.uk. And you can read what I've got to say about Manchester United and, for some reason, the Greece national team on Bleacher Report UK.
Very good, yes, and I think we will be exhausted after 5, 8 or 9 and 11 p.m. games and the odd 2 a.m. Not too many 2 a.m.s. England have got one of them. I think Ivory Coast and Japan is another one. It's going to be a lengthy World Cup. For me, I'm an insomniac anyway, so I'm going to be enjoy watching 3 games a day, stroke a night, and then the highlights packages, and then reading all the coverage, writing some on the blog, talking about some of it on the pod, and it'll be a pleasure to be with you throughout this tournament. Thank you for listening to this overlong podcast. We'll be with you very soon.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.